I'd like to bring this meeting to order. It's 20 minutes to 9, and almost 20 minutes to 9, and
Thank you.
we have a quorum here. We have Mrs. Donahue, Mr. Gray, Mr. Heath, Mrs. Bronk, and Mr. Trudell. And we also have the town administrator and Mr. Gifford from the Department of Maintenance. Mr. Gifford, I'm gonna give a little backup here. I'm going to chair for as long as I can, and if I peter out a little bit due to my illness, my astute colleague here is ready to step in and take over. I want to add before you get going that you have my utmost respect in the department that you have run and the difficulty that you have run it in, and we look forward to working with you on this budget and helping. Maybe you can help make a difference for us, because I think we are all on the same page, and we're looking for the best for the town of Wareham, including the children of Wareham. So, Mr. Gifford, with that said, would you please start your...
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan gave me a mint, and I shouldn't have taken it. First of all, I want to thank you for having me here. I want to thank Mr. Sullivan for all the good work that he has done, and congratulate him formally for his being appointed as town administrator. I've worked with Derek and all hard he works, and he pays attention, and I appreciate that. With that, we've got 3 budgets. I'd like to start off with the streetlight budget, which will be one of the easier ones, and you have it in front of you. You've got a copy there. As you know, we had a reduction from last year. We used to budget 161,000 streetlights.
Can you speak a little bit? The acoustics are a little high here.
Okay.
I'm having a difficult time.
I can speak louder.
Okay.
Our budget back in 2012 was 161,000. It was reduced in 2013 to 100,000. Presently, and if you go to the second page, we've expended 51.13% of the budget. So we're on track cost-wise, but what that does not reflect, and this has been my problem, is maintenance of the streetlights. We have approximately 250 ornamental period lights in Onset Village. They're in desire. So what's the word? They're just obsolete. We cannot repair them anymore, and that's why we haven't been making repairs, because they're worn out. We're going to have to start replacing the heads on those streetlights. It's going to be a very costly venture.
Is it, how many lights did you say? 250?
Approximately 250. I am looking into avenues as to how much it's going to cost to replace them, some sort of money source, but that is not in this budget. So this is basically just electrical costs. Yes?
Out of curiosity, can you give us an estimate as to, or a range as to what the cost might be per light?
I can't, honestly. We're probably looking at the 250 of them. The poles alone are approximately $10,000 each. That's not counting the head on the top. So it's got to be at least a couple thousand each.
Do you have to replace the poles?
No, the poles will not be replaced. They'll be refitted, painted. We're in the process right now. Public Electric has grounded them all because we had a grounding problem where a few people were getting tickled when they touched them, and that's a no-no. Yes?
A comment, because this seems, and I hate to always make it sound like we're going back to businesses, but I know there are several active organizations in Onset, the Onset Bay Association, whatever else. I'm actually a big fan of these, even though they may be expensive and may not be practical, because they go in the direction that we're looking to go at.
Correct.
To make Onset look the way we want it to look. So I really want to save these lights, but I'm wondering if there are outside sources that you could tap into, and certainly I will try to figure out who they are and get names to you if we can.
Well,
Or
because
if
that's
you
what
are-
we're dealing with a company right now that's trying to find some grants out there,
Right, right.
upgrade them to LED lights, lighting.
Community development, I don't know that. I don't have the answer, but somebody out there does.
Can we hold, let's try and hold his questions till the end?
Okay.
Write them down and get them all at the end, that way we're not constantly interrupting him and he loses
Okay.
his train of thought, but
Thank you.
we'll
Okay,
write that.
well,
Thank you.
basically, as far as the street lighting budget goes, we're right on track as far as expenditures, although we're not including maintenance or replacing some of these lights. So it's something you're gonna have to look at down the road. And if we don't have any maintenance between now and July 30th, I think we're gonna be okay, but I can't guarantee you that. I know in the past, we've spent 140, 150,000 per year. So to cut it back to 100,000, that's pretty tight.
It is.
Are we closed on street lighting?
Okay. So that's basically where you're at. So the only issue you're saying right now that you're seeing in your budget is the street lighting?
Right, this is street lighting is a separate budget.
Okay.
And right now, the expenditures is at 51.13%.
Anybody have any questions on this sheet?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Trudell?
I had asked some time ago to you, a number of years ago, regarding the shutting off of selected streetlights, and you said that would require you and the police chief to go through.
That's correct, but there's one factor you have to keep in mind. To shut a street light off, there's a cost associated with it.
Understand that?
You have to have an install come out, they shut it off, they take the light down. So it's really not as cost-effective as you think it is.
And I had asked you earlier this year about owning lights, and because someone in another town had requested that information. For the edification of the FinCom, could you explain why we own some of our lights and the cost factors involved in that versus?
Well, we own all our streetlights, including the decorative lights, the lights, new lights in the center of town. And we go out to bid for electricity. We don't buy electricity right from NSTAR.
Right.
It comes from an outside source.
I'm just
And
looking
we
at
can
the-
save a great deal of money. I can't give you an exact figure, but that's why it was done that way.
Do
I
you,
understood that, but I'm not sure that they were aware of that part. Thank you.
do you do consumption reports?
We have. I don't have one with me.
But you do them?
Yeah.
Do you do them?
Yeah, we're constantly looking at the figures, and we go to different companies that we go out to bid for electricity.
Anyone else? Bob? Carolyn? Any more questions on that? No? Pam? Right, okay. I'll sit here.
All right, that's it for streetlights. And can we go to snow and ice? Which should be very straightforward. Last year, we budgeted 191,000. And you know, snow and ice is one of those accounts where you don't know where you are, you're all over the place. I've given you one sheet, which is a breakdown of the one storm that we had. In that one storm, we expended $72,440.37. It's just, we're allowed to spend in deficit according to the state law. And I would recommend that we leave it that way.
What's the current policy before we call out plows. At one point, there was a couple inches of snow on the ground. Do we have a stated policy on that?
We have a policy. In fact, I'll give you the scenario of the last storm we had. I talked to my foreman at 6 o'clock at night. It was raining, but he went out anyways because I expected the temperature to drop quickly. We called all of our employees in at 8 o'clock. The trucks were ready. They were ready to go. It was still raining. Within 45 minutes, the snow was coming down so quickly, we didn't even get one round of sand out, and we were having trouble keeping up with it. So we called the hired plows, because it goes by storm by storm. If it's going to be a storm that's dragged out, well, you can hold off on hired plows. A storm like this last one, they were out plowing before my guys were, because they had to come back and hook their plows on. So it's a storm by storm case, but usually 2 to 3 inches, we'll start calling in the hired plows.
Anyone else have any questions? I think it's been a policy that the FinCom, since this board's early inception, that we like to see the snow budget come up a little bit every month more realistic. But we understand that that's the one account that can really play with, and that you have to.
Well, and I think maybe
We have to pay for it. We understand that.
maybe Mr. Sullivan can explain it better than I can, but the higher you increase the budget, you never can lower it.
No, exactly. So you don't want to, yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, for the people listening at home, it is the one that we can deficit spend. However, you have to increase it incrementally every year. You can't keep it the same. If we decided one year, let's say, to increase it to 500,000, you can never decrease it from there. And also as well, if you had a light snow year, you can't take the funds out of there and transfer them out during the year. So you're stuck with that for essentially forever. You're going to have to keep up from that number. So like last year, which was a tight year, we need to make some transfers at the end of the year. If there was a couple $100,000 in that account, if we'd increased it, we would not have been able to transfer those monies.
Right.
Question
Yeah.
from that. You can never reduce it at all from year to year? Any at all?
No, if you reduce it, you won't be able to deficit spend it then.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Yes,
One
ma'am.
question with regard to the line item on snow removal contracts. We only are responsible for paying those contracted services if we actually use them? Or do
That's
we-
correct.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Now we can, in the bigger packet, municipal maintenance budget and town buildings, there are 3 different scenarios in there. One on the top is Mr. Sullivan's, which is the one we'll be going by. And then he had asked me for a 2% decrease and a 2% increase, and let's just back up for your reading if you'd like. And it's going to break down of my budget with detail in there. And just quickly to go over our operating budget as of this year. Just cover it up. As far as payroll goes, vacation buyback, on-call wages, night differential, bereavement, personal days, vacation days. We're right now presently at 43%, although I think that's maybe closer to 48. My secretary called me just before I come in here. So where we should be as far as payroll goes. And then if you get to the expense account, we're down around 49.97%. So we're towing the line within our current operating budget. With that said, Mr. Sullivan's budget, he reduced my payroll, and I attempted to put additional laborer into my, he cut that to lower the budget by, what was it, 2%?
to get it.
and he left my expense account alone. But I really don't want to sit here and talk about the figures. I want to talk about what municipal maintenance is unable to do because we do not have the personnel. And I think that's very important. And in your packet, you've got a couple of sheets of paper here. There are a number of things that we just cannot perform. There are services that should be done, such as roadside litter and trash pickup. We got rotten guardrails and roadside cleanup that we're not doing. Incomplete sweeping of streets. According to the EPA, our new stormwater regulations, we're supposed to sweep our streets twice a year. We're not doing it. We can't do it physically because I do not have the help. We're supposed to clean our catch basins once a year, according to that stormwater committee. We got a brand new catch basin truck. It's great. It's maybe operated 2 months out of the year. I have over 3,500 catch basins that need to be cleaned. They need to be repaired. I don't have the personnel. And I hate to keep saying I don't have the personnel, but
That would work out to like, assuming a year-round operation, to over 70 catch basins a week.
well, you're correct. But, and unfortunately, and I had some pictures up front of GM this morning, we've got catch basins that fill right to the top with grass growing up. And I ride by these things and it bothers me, because I know they have to be cleaned. If you got on a routine where you had the catch basins cleaned
A PM.
annually, then you wouldn't be cleaning out a whole catch basin. You'd be stopping maybe for 15, 20 minutes per basin to keep them clean. But once they get so far, and we've got catch basins that are collapsing. We've got some problems out there, and unfortunately, we've robbed Peter to pay Paul over a number of years because we keep cutting. And we're cutting personnel, and it's, you know, we got signs that aren't being repaired, potholes. I mean, basically, we're working as an emergency unit now. You know, we get a tree down, okay, someone calls, we go take care of it. We get potholes, they call, we go take care of it. But we should have we don't have a tree crew. We got a brand new chipper and a bucket truck. I don't have personnel to operate it. If you were out during the last snowstorm, you would notice that all the trees along the roadside, they should be cut back, at least 14, 15 feet. Some of these roads, you had trouble driving through because of heavy snow and the trees were just overhanging and coming down. It's a problem. And somehow, and I know Mr. Sullivan has done his damnedest to try to work on these figures, and he's only got so much money to work with. But we need personnel. And I'm sure the selectmen are aware of that. I know I talked about this last year, but that's the problem we have in municipal maintenance. We need personnel to operate the equipment we have. On a typical day in the summer, I mean, you come in on Monday morning, so you got 30 acres of parkland to mow. So you send 2 guys out with mowers for parks. You got 30-something acres of cemeteries to mow. So you get, that's 2 more bodies. You got gravel roads to cut. You got beaches to clean. You got rubbish truck in the summertime that runs 7 days a week. I don't have personnel enough to do this. And then you throw in a funeral, you have someone call in sick. All these gentlemen, they have the max of sick time and vacation time. They're allowed to take their vacation. I mean, that's my problem. I'm going to work with the budget that Mr. Sullivan has produced, and we'll do the best we can, but we need personnel. That's the bottom line.
Yes, Mrs. Donahue, go ahead.
Thank you for pointing this out. And first, I'd like to say you do a tremendous job, given what you have the resources. I'm
Thank you.
very grateful for that, and I do appreciate it. I think everyone in town appreciates how stretched out you are. And you finally gave me the household analogy that I've been looking for, because that's how I like to relate it. I've always said I can keep the house clean and tidy, but I can't get to the projects. I have rooms that need to get painted. I have all those side projects that I just never seem to get to. Looking at this list, and I wish you hadn't attached names to it, because that makes it become personal, and it bothers me greatly to be the one to say this, but maybe because I'm in this position, I will say, I'm in administrative, I've worked administrative for many years. We need people out there with mowers who can use heavy equipment. We have 2 department assistants. Is that justifiable? Is there a way that we can utilize them other areas of town, other departments? That's for you and Mr. Sullivan to discuss, but it just seems to me when we need critical hands on the ground. I learned how to paint my house because I needed that skill. I'm not suggesting that whoever you have as office assistants go out and read the mower, but is there a way that we can reallocate personnel in this department?
We have talked about restructuring, not so much with the department assistants, because those 2 ladies in our office are busy. I mean, one takes care of all the billing, the other one takes care of all the sewer projects.
Oh, they'll probably shoot me for that, and believe me, I know. It's
No,
the same.
it's-
In my office, we say, you don't know what I do until I don't do it. That's the only way you find
Right.
out what I'm doing.
I mean,
So
they-
I understand that, but on paper, you need to see what I'm looking at,
Yeah.
and I'm wondering
Oh,
why.
I understand, but we have talked about restructuring, trying to figure out some way to get more bodies, more feet on the ground. And
And
it's
billing
tough.
seems to be one of those services that could be moved. That's to you gentlemen to discuss, but I just put it out there as a suggestion.
Mr. Town Administrator, have you looked at the possibility of retirees that can work part-time? I mean, you've got a lot of skilled baby boomers out there that are retiring, and I was in the business of property management. I know how important it is to do these catch basins. I mean, those are just, when I see they're not getting done, I'm like, oh, that's a major problem ready to happen. And it's either you pay me now or you pay me later. And when you pay me later, you're gonna pay a lot more money. So we need to get, can we look on a tax basis, or can we look to hire, there's plenty of folks that would love to get out there 10 or 20 hours. Is it something we can focus in on? And because our seniors are the most reliable people that you'll ever find. We're coming from the productive workforce. We're eager to still help out in our communities and work. I think you could tap into them legally, and how you do it, I'm not sure, but I really, the litter mob, I mean, I've got so many folks signing up for Sandy Slavin and the Jimmy Bruce's wife's litter mob. People want to help you. Use us, help us, I mean, we'll help organize, but there are people that can drive that truck that clean your catch basins that are out there that are retired right now, and they can help you out. My advice would be, how can we channel it and do it?
The one thing that we're looking at is gonna start Friday is community service out of New Bedford.
Oh, that's a good one too.
So they should be here at least once a week to help pick up some of the litter. Doesn't mean that they're gonna get it all, doesn't mean that I get them every week. But
Yep.
we show up with a bus full of
Aren't you?
community service
Yeah.
people.
That's a good thing, that's a good thing to have.
We used to have prisoners from Plymouth County House of Correction. They
Right.
did a wonderful job.
Yeah, they do.
Along with
They do.
the guard, and the guard worked as hard as they did. Unfortunately, that program has dried up as of right now. I haven't checked with the sheriff as of lately, but that project dried up, and that really hurt us. The one department that I didn't talk about was our custodians. You just mentioned them, I said I should have. We have 4 custodians, one at the police department, which is a full-time job. We have one which is a foreman, he works days, keep an eye on this building, multi-service center, and a library, and then we have 2 that come in at night. And we take care of all town buildings with just 4 people. It doesn't cut it.
I
It
know.
just, I mean, if you look at the hallways out here, they should be shining, and they're not.
I know.
And it just goes back to personnel again.
We had one injured this year.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
what did that do to our overtime on
That hurt us because he was injured, he was gonna be out for several weeks. He had plenty of time on the books, so we had to keep paying him, which we should have. But we hired 2 part-time people, and they were here, well, we just let them go, which one was.
And I received a letter from the Council on Aging or an email saying how helpful it was to have them over there for cleaning and such, and moving some of the items that they need moved. And the reason that we hired those temporary ones were the other custodians were working so much overtime, they were actually saying they don't want the overtime. They want to go home and spend time with their families. The hours were
Well, they were
amazing.
working nights, and then they'd have to come in at 6 in the morning, and it was,
Yeah.
So,
Well, anybody else have any questions? Sue? Okay, hold on, David, and then Sam?
Not so much a question. I want to really thank you for telling me what you're not doing.
well, I thought that was important.
I think it's
It is.
extremely important. You know, last year I've not sat on capital planning, but up to that I did. But the historical trend here in town is we're not taking care of buildings, we're not taking care of equipment. And we're seeing a structural deficiency in capital that's staggering. What this is also saying is, in addition to our inability to invest money into capital, these are the reasons why we're not able to sustain and keep them up to snuff. This is a pretty insidious problem in terms of no money to maintain and upkeep and no personnel and resources to commit to that. It just makes the problem worse. No fault on your part. I just thank you for giving me this, because it really does expose that it's not just a lack of money, but it's a lack of resources that you don't have to get even basic maintenance done. I know that our town administrator is aware of it. He's been in with capital planning from the get-go. I don't know how he's going to balance it, but this is just highlighting how absolutely horrible this situation is for the town. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Ray?
First of all, I certainly appreciate the problems that you're working with and respect that very much. And this is maybe a minor item, but it's one I see every day, so I comment. Along Minot Forest, for example, the trash along there is unbelievable, and clearly the side of the road is being used as a dump. Based on the number of bags that are left out there, et cetera. And when it gets about knee deep, it is cleaned up, but that lasts for about 15 minutes, and then it's the same way. There are no signs up there at all, nothing which says, hey, you're liable to get fined, heavily if you do this. Wouldn't that perhaps help a little bit?
Yeah, it might, and that's something that most certainly could be done. To be honest with you, I don't know what the fine is.
I have no idea. I don't think anybody's ever been fined, so we probably don't know.
I mean, it's most certainly something we can do. And I'm going to give you an example is, just before the Christmas parade, we went to Merchants Way, cleaned it up with spotless. If you go to Merchants Way today,
It's a
it is
mess.
a mess. And even Minot Forest, you go on Indian Neck Road, I mean, you clean it up. Alan's wife and Littlemore do a wonderful job. But you go back 2 weeks later, and it's,
Yep.
To Sam's point, I think because it needs to be a multi-faceted approach. We have volunteers who will do it. If you can get signs up there, we figure out what the fine is, and then we enforce it. There are towns that actually do that and have success with it, because once you set that precedent, it becomes an awareness. But it's
I'm
more,
sure-
it's as much a community problem as it is a departmental problem.
I'm sure Mr. Sullivan and I can sit down with the chief and,
see when we come together.
if someone gets fined, they're gonna think twice the next time.
Word will spread, and hopefully we get
Hopefully.
something.
Hopefully it might at least save from the refrigerators being dropped there.
Sandy was just off of Little Mount, just recently a portion of Minot Ave. If you go down Minot Ave, you can see where it's clean. You can tell exactly where it's stopped. It's really obvious. And also down Indian Neck and stuff, it's just been worked out. I remember last year, I spent more than 3 or 4 full days doing that area, and within 3 to 4 weeks, it looked as if I hadn't done it. Sandy made a point at the Board of Selectmen meeting on past Tuesday. Those roads are not roads traveled by people from out of town.
They're local.
Those are our own residents.
Yes, they are.
Those roads are not traveled, by people
Exactly.
traveling, and that's the problem.
And, I'd like to state that there's another problem, and it's listed in here, it's our roadside mowing and trimming back.
Yeah.
If the shoulders of the road were trimmed back and kept neat, it might help.
It looks like we don't care.
Right.
Thank you.
It might help you folks if we got the litter mob together and we got some kind of a news clip out or something that we could get volunteers. Because I am so sure you can get volunteers, and I'm so sure you don't have the time to organize them. But we do have folks that would like to help.
They call the trash can and haven't got active for some reason. Supposed to be next month, but we did it before. Actually, we did that 3 months ago.
Go ahead.
And I'll stop.
Oh,
Is there any plans this summer to bring in temp workers to deal with your 30 acres of lawn mowing?
I'm glad you brought that up. Good point. As we've been talking about this, and I talked to Mr. Bergamasco this morning, we went to the cemetery commissioners meeting, and if we can get the cemetery commissioners on board and take 10,000 potential care, the interest account, to hire, I'd like to hire, not put it in overtime, but hire casual laborers.
Yes.
exactly.
High school kids, college kids, in the
Right.
summer months.
We gotta be
Because
18
I
around
used to have
equipment.
18 of them, but even if we could hire 10.
Look in the FY'14 budget, under the other budget articles, I put in there, you'll see under cemetery casual laborers, so that would be page 4 or 5 in the administrator's budget, $10,000 for casual laborers, because it is, at the end of the day, if you can get his guys to the other projects that need to be done, and somebody else to do the mowing,
Right.
that's a huge boon to the town.
Thank you.
Okay.
I mean, as it is right now, we have foremen, I have my mechanics out of the garage, especially if the budget's getting shot. They're all in the cemetery, we lack in lawn. On Memorial Day, and then 4th of July, and it's just.
Yeah.
Donna?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for letting me interrupt. That was the question I had. Could you gentlemen, one of the two of you, explain to me the flow of cash through cemeteries, because I don't see it outlined here. I know that people who get buried pay a fee, so that's income to the town. How does this all work?
Yeah, there's a special care account, that's the maintenance of cemetery. The only monies we can touch out of is the interest. The rest of it stays in account.
Okay, so
We have the
somebody-
sales of lots and graves.
Sales of lots and graves, they buy the lot.
Right, that money goes into,
Yeah. Well, it's actually in the
no, that goes into a separate account, and that only can be used in cemeteries. And then there is the fee for burial.
The actual burial fee.
The actual
Okay, so
burial.
Purchase fee, a burial fee.
That goes into the general account. So I never see that money's back. I expend the monies, say it's an overtime or Saturday or Sunday funeral. I have to pay my vendor on the burial, then that money goes back, goes into the general fund.
And that fee is enough to cover our expense.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. Even though I don't get it back in my budget, I gotta make that clear.
People just, he get buried on Saturdays and Sundays, that's all, no
Yeah.
overtime.
Okay, anybody else, any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Keep up the good work and, hopefully we can get you some help.
I appreciate it.
I like to think these difficult times can be opportunities too for a community to come together, and I hope we will.
Yeah, it might be something that we can work on or have this committee tackle with the subcommittee, is looking at maybe a restructuring of the department. Go out there, take a look, go in there and see, have some ideas with that. I know Mr. Gifford and I have been speaking about, but maybe an outside eye doesn't hurt as well.
No? As I said, the catch basins, I mean, that's on my PM every month. I mean, I can tell you every property, how many I have too.
Yeah,
And your potholes and your, and things like that, those are just things that you have to do.
you know, and I tell my foreman, I say, hey, you only can do one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Do it, get it done right, and then move on to the next one.
Exactly.
Because if you do half of this and half of that, there's a saying, I can't remember what it is now.
I think the important part is what you've been saying here, because I get emails and calls and saying, well, those guys have to drive by that every day and see it. And, like you said, you see it and it's aggravating to you, but you don't have the time to address each and every one. So when we're waiting till there are emergencies or big issues, then it's really a problem. That's not right.
Yes, Mr. Yeah.
To the town administrator, if I might. You know, all I see is where we expend monies. And yet I know he gets grants. He just talked about opening a plot, somebody there to do that, does his burial, the money comes into the general fund. Can we, either way, can or have a way in which I could really get the true cost of what his department is? And certainly, all I see is expenses, but I don't see where he has the money that comes back in grants, the money he gets for roads, the money for reimbursements of some of those salaries when we've had a disaster. Okay, he opens up a cemetery hole. Yes, he doesn't get the money there, but he's generating revenue through the town. Do we ever, when we look at departments, say, yes, this is what it costs me, but this is the kind of revenue they generate, and therefore my true costs really are reflective here at a lower number?
We look at the fees that are brought in, but to tell you the truth, we aren't basing it off that sort of stream. We're basing it off of,
Yeah.
I'm just looking at it in perspective of, all I ever see is the outgo on his side of the house. And he's, I think, the second largest one in town. And yet, I know he does bring in monies. And I'm not saying that it's an offset, but it puts things in a better perspective of, yes, this is what it cost me, but out here I'm generating revenues. Yeah.
it's actually interesting because in that line, and I'm jumping ahead in one of the departments, but the Board of Selectmen office pays for itself through liquor licenses alone. People wouldn't understand that.
Yeah.
But if you're able to produce that, one is then able to put it into perspective of, yes, this is my cost of government, $50 million for a town budget, but then I turn around and say, all right, this is what we're bringing in. And when I split town school, I generate these kind of revenues from my department, so it really doesn't cost me that much to run it in truth.
I think there's something put together on this.
I just didn't know if you've done it, but I just think it's one more piece of ammunition that you have when it comes to the cost of doing business for the community.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just have one more comment, and it's a potential cut to our Chapter 90 funding. As I was reading in the paper, the governor is proposing $100 million to the cities and towns for Chapter 90 monies. That's a $50 million decrease from last year. And that's going to hurt us significantly. And I just want to put that out there as that goes through.
Yeah.
That's not etched in stone, that's just
No,
his
no, I
figures.
understand.
Okay.
Hey, do you think, I know I don't want to hold you any longer, but
Yeah.
you might want to explain to people that are listening with the Chapter 90 how it operates.
Chapter 90 is money that's allocated to us through the state. Last year it was 700, I don't know the exact figure, 785,000. And it is used for maintenance of our town accepted ways. You know, we pave X amount of streets, reconstruct them, so on with that. So if we end up with this cut, we're going to be back to approximately $450,000. And $450,000 doesn't go too far.
No.
It costs you over $1 million a mile to reconstruct a road. We have 210 miles of road in this town.
210 miles.
And the average life expectancy of a road is?
If it's done right, 20 years. And then it depends on how much traveling you have. So, and believe it or not, the curvature, I mean, we've had a road management study done. We're in pretty good shape. We still have a number of roads that are in bad shape.
Right, right.
And not to mention all the streets that you don't accept,
Right.
because the process is so difficult that it doesn't get done. So those become private ways, responsible for their own road maintenance, yet they pay the same taxes as everybody else on accepted streets.
And, you know, the average taxpayer, all they worry about is,
Corner
square
of-
footage of God's creation, and that's understandable. You worry about what's in front of your house, I worry about what's in front of my house.
All right,
Okay.
thank you very much. And I'd like to call our next meeting to, our next segment to order. Mr. Campina, nice to
morning.
see you this morning.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Nice to see you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Finance Committee. Good to see you. I'm here hoping to be able to answer your questions in my approach to the budget. So just be here whenever you have. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Do you have any added materials that you brought along for us, or?
Not at this time, now. I'm putting some things together, not at this time. We're really focused. Yesterday, I sent 2 representatives from the town school department up to Manchester, New Hampshire. They were actually there Tuesday and Wednesday. I want to bring this to your attention because it speaks to the CMON program, which is going to be a major hit for us next year in our 2014 budget. They met with the EPA, 2 representatives from the EPA, in regards to CMON, and they met with Dick Perez, who trained these 2 folks that I sent, Phil Very and Ron, what's Ron's last name? Good, he's a new, forgive me, he's a new employee. I got it here, Goodberry. Ron's name. Anyways, what they did is they learned yesterday how to camera our lines, inspect our manholes, and what the approach of the CMOM is going to be, and what our financial commitment is going to be. So I have all that information, and I'll present it to you, Mr. Chairman, to go forward because it speaks to our CMOM program.
Could we declare this an acronym prohibited zone, please?
What's that mean?
It means you give us, we don't know what you're talking about.
We don't know what you're talking about.
We're using an acronym, which is a set of letters
Okay,
that
did you
represent.
get a copy? Okay, I thought I provided. CMOM is a program. What CMOM is the federal government, EPA, is asking us to take our collection system and to do a capacity management, operation, and maintenance of that program. In the past, the EPA and the DEP has been very, very adamant about the treatment plant itself, maintaining it, operating it, following the permit guidelines, that type of thing. Now what they're doing is they're saying, because we have infrastructure issues throughout the country, that each facility will be responsible to do the same approach, take the same approach for the collection system.
And
So now
CMON stands for what?
I'm sorry?
What does CMON stand for?
Capacity, management, operation, and maintenance
Okay.
of the collection system. And so what that means now is that we have to maintain it. And somebody will say, well, don't you do that anyways? Not to the capacity that EPA is requiring. And this program, I should have provided a copy, I'll get you a copy. This is going to be in our permit, renewing our permit for 2014. I'm doing that right now. I've already sent the paperwork in, the EPA has it, we've sent it out to the state agencies. Everybody has this, and this is going to be the biggest part next year of our permit. A new addition, something that we're going to have to play with as we go along. So, I'm sorry.
If I might interrupt.
Yes, you may.
You say that you monitor this. Are you talking also to include catch basins?
Yes, yes, catch basins, pipes, pumps. We started already, it's called level 1 catch basins, and check them out. Now we're into level 2, which means you have to climb into catch basins, you look for cracks, leaks, you look for the riser leaks, you look for the cover integrity. Yes, that now has to happen. It takes manpower to do that.
The maintenance director who was here previous to you noted that he had some 3,900 catch basins in town. Are we talking the same number, or are
Absolutely. I think a little bit more. I have manholes everywhere. Every time you see a pipe, we have
Okay.
manholes. Every street that has sewer has
Who's
multiple
responsible
manholes.
for manholes, the maintenance department or the sewer
Sewer,
department?
sewer manholes are my responsibility.
But if it's not a sewer manhole,
That is the town's responsibility.
It's a storm drain.
Storm drain.
Storm drain.
Which someday that should be integrated, but that's another story, another day, because you talk, eventually stormwater, the EPA is saying we gotta treat that.
yes.
So treatment comes under wastewater, so someday, many communities have already combined the two because you have the personnel that is aware of treating water, removing particles. So someday, it should be considered in this town to do the same approach. I didn't mean to go off a tangent, I'll take your questions, I did want to bring that to your attention because that's going to be a major responsibility for us next year. Mandated by the EPA. Right now, there's no mandate. They've been suggesting to us for quite some time to take the initiative to look at our collection system and look for I&I, infiltration, infiltration and inflow into your pipes, into your manholes. And that's fresh water coming in that we're paying to treat that we get no benefit from. So all these things.
What's your sense of what shape you're in?
Well, we have some issues out there. We have some issues. I've got I&I, I've got manholes that have issues structurally. Yeah, I explained infiltration, inflow. We have structural issues in our manholes. We have clay pipes out there that have some fractures and things of that sort. We got to verify that and document that. Yeah, we have some issues. Definitely have some issues. We have issues in our pump stations. So we're going to attack them one at a time. I'm going to start by going out there myself at night, identifying the areas that are taking excessive water, which would indicate some type of infiltration. And then I'll document that. I'll take that and have it quantified, and then document the pipe, the leakage, the fractures, and then I'll kind of go to the state and say I need money to fix it. And that's the process. So we started that by yesterday by going to the class to get the guys certified. They're now certified to do pipe inspections, manhole inspections. The certificate gives them the authority to put this paperwork together. We can take this paperwork and apply for funding through the SRF program to make these collections and rectifications that we have in the system. So we started the program already in anticipation of our 2014 renewal. In the class, they don't run them much. We had one in Manchester, and we took full advantage of it. So that's the direction we're going into in the wastewater plant. The plant itself is 7, 8 years old. We're coming to the point where life expectancies are approaching us in the plant. Our life expectancies of our collection system were well past in a lot of issues. You know, our pump station electricals are 15 years. We have pump stations that are 25, 30 years old. We have pump stations that are 12 years old after we have. They're coming to their life expectancy of electrical, so we need to look at that. So there's a lot that we're going to have to deal with in the coming years, and we're trying to prepare for that. And the first thing is manpower. And we'll see where we go from there. So yeah, we're getting ready for it. We're taking it serious, we're training our personnel, because the biggest thing for me is to save money. We could hire contractors to do all of this at millions of dollars. We're going to take our money and educate ourselves and do the bulk of this work ourselves, and only use the engineers to quantify and things of that sort. But we're going to do the bulk of the labor. That's going to be our responsibility, and that's why training becomes really critical and important to what we're trying to accomplish. So our guys have stepped to the plate. They're taking on these courses. They're studying hard, and we're appreciative of it, and it's going to benefit everyone else. We're excited about it.
Anyone have any questions? Yes, Sam?
Perhaps this question is more directed at Derek than it is at you, but I noticed the part-time bookkeeper is proposed additional staff, and I understand the need for that under the present setup. I don't know how many bookkeepers we have scattered through the various town departments. I believe there's one in the police department. I know there's one in the school committee, etc. I would think that setting up a accounting department, town accounting department, where this was all done centrally, would be a much more organized and efficient method of doing the jobs. Have you considered this?
Right now, the accounting department does do the accounting for the water pollution control facility. The part-time bookkeeper position, correct me if I'm wrong, is to get almost an internal handle on their costs and expenditures. Because what our accounting department really does is tracks what's being paid, what revenue's coming in, but they're not going to do analysis and reports of it. And I think that's really what Mr. Campina needs in his department. If you're looking at it with almost a $7 million budget, that is by far the second largest budget that we have out of any departments in the whole area.
Oh, I understand the need for it now. I just wondered if it wouldn't be more efficient having an accounting department that did perform the various projects that were needed in departments such as this. I know there's a need for doing that analysis. I don't question that for a second. But I'm just really looking and thinking that an accounting department that performed those tasks for the whole town might be a more efficient method. And I don't know that it is. I was only questioning whether that had been considered when I did that.
I don't disagree on that, because I think at some point in time, and I may use the term baby steps on this, we're going to be, I would hope that we move to a centralized accounting finance department that includes.
I should have used the word centralized, but that's exactly what I meant.
That not only with the water pollution control, but the
Yes.
school department as well. There should be one central sort of organism that understands what every function is at once and understands where it all comes together.
Exactly.
When?
I use the term baby steps.
I heard that, yeah, but you got baby steps you gotta worry about in February. I wanna know what the town can expect in terms of that happening, centralized
Well, one of the,
finance.
you were going to hear sooner rather than later, so bringing up that I'll be proposing a restructuring of the finance department to go before the board of selectmen to go to town meeting, in which we will have a finance director overseeing the various functions. The school currently, we're working with them, we've just opened up speaking with them about it, so I don't believe that would make it to this Springtown meeting, but I do believe we need to reorganize the finance department and have a centralized person looking over the accounting, the treasurer collector's office, and the assessing, so that together they're working in one fashion.
What is the cost or the revenue gain from that, or the cost reduction?
The cost would be, with the proposition, zero, because we would have to move some departments around, and it might mean that we would lose a staff member on there. So, right now, we would look, if you come to the accounting department, which I really, we can get to that later, just because of the water pollution controls budget, I'll be proposing that we no longer have an assistant town accountant.
Do you have a question, Marilyn?
Well, to Tom's point and to Sam's point, it would still be an accounting line item on this budget because this is an enterprise fund, so we're supposed to be self-sufficient. I'm going to touch that third rail and say there are no other administrative costs coming out listed on this budget other than the employee health care paid to the town. So what you do as town administrator working with the town, what the bill collection, whatever else, is still maintained in the town's budget, not on the sewer budget.
I'm sorry.
I just need to be
No,
clarification.
and I want to, that's a very, very good point, because administrative costs, if he reorganizes the accounting, and the accounting works for us. We need to compensate the general fund for that. That's reality, and I understand where he's going with that. And so what I was saying in the baby step that he's saying, I agree with the baby
So now
step.
you know what it costs you, and you can get a real number.
A number, because I don't know, so we have somebody in there doing all our financial. I use the word bookkeeper, probably the wrong word, but somebody with financial knowledge that can take all the finances of this department and get their hands around it. And so we can make better decisions, know where we really have to go, and we have a better picture financially. And so then the town administrator can take that and make his decisions, what he has to do in the long term for his overall of the town. So I want to be clear, because we have no problem. I really truly believe that we're responsible for every time I use a general fund personnel, well, I'm responsible because we're an enterprise fund. And I don't want to lose sight of that because it is a business. So I felt originally that I need an accountant, my own accountant, because it's a business. If you centralize it, we still use that accountant, we still pay for it. So the bookkeeper was to get a handle on everything.
wanted clarification.
And that's all that person's going to do is finances. Right now, everybody does finances. This person does finances, this person does finances, and there's no cohesiveness. Left hand doesn't tell the right hand, so things get lost. And so I want to eliminate that. And also, we're doing an EDU audit because we're missing revenue. Because we have people that have 2 families paying for 1 family. We have businesses with 20 seats paying for 10 seats. So we began that process. We have an intern who was on break, he'll be back. We started that process, and we're finding EDUs, which is revenue. So if one person's doing all money issues in and out, then that person can make sure that we're doing annual updates on our EDU, make sure we're not losing things. So it's a bigger picture, and that's why I needed that individual to start this program, to move forward, to work in line with the town administration trying to accomplish for the town on the town-wide. But we need someone that's going to handle finances. That's all they do, with the expertise to understand it.
I have a question too. Chemicals, you said that you were making progress with chemicals,
Yes,
and I don't see it in the budget. And I'm interested in the chemicals, and I'm interested in the sale of grease, because I heard this big pitch on the sale of grease. And are we making any money?
last year we made $250,000 into the budget for grease.
From
Our
grease
gross
to-
revenue was $400,000. I don't have the revenue. I don't get that. I can download that and make a note to get you. That would be the revenues of last year. You can see for
Yes.
yourself. Yes.
And-
So I'll get you revenues for last year.
And I heard you were saving a considerable amount on chemicals.
Chemicals, we're saving money on chemicals, we certainly are. But where I lost money this past year is on odor control. Odor control in new systems. The Parkwood system is new, Oak Street is new. We have a lot of odors in the system. We spent money on chemicals to get rid of those. We're still spending a lot of money. We found an issue, we resolved it, that should come down. So why I left it? Now last year we didn't use all our chemical budget, so I left it the same. I think I went up 10% or something. But hopefully, I don't use it again and we put it back into retained earnings. But again, odors, it's so unpredictable, I really want to take it out.
I fully understand what you're saying. However, we're not seeing it here in these numbers. You come before us and you tell us we've got a handle on the cost of the chemicals and we're saving big money. But you can't see it here,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
you know, and it's just a matter of,
Okay.
yes, you've got new storage system, and yes, we want to hear about that you're covering with the same, and no one disputes the odor in that area. No one. But you need to come in and tell us what you've done. Like, when you came aboard, your big pitch was you're gonna sell grease and you're gonna make money. And that sticks in my head, and I wanna say, did we make money?
Yes, we
Are
did.
we charging the same rate, or is it cheaper to take our sewage up to New Bedford and get rid of it? Are we being competitive with our prices?
I don't know if you got it, but I'm asking for a different structure. We're going to raise grease price. We're
Okay.
going to raise septic price in Bourne. We're going to lower septic price for the surrounding communities, and that's going to generate more septic dollars. But in my budget, I put $250,000 of revenue for grease. That's net revenue. that money we're using to pay for other things. So we are making money with these. We made 400,000. I took 150 to make the 400. So my net is 250,000. So that's in
what
my
we-
budget. That's revenue.
That's what we want to see.
It's in my budget right here, $250,000. I'm adding to my budget for revenue side. That's our revenue, $250,000.
I don't know if that, actually, I don't think that page,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't have it.
no, why don't
We have the
I'll make a
expense
copy
side.
of it.
I'm sorry, yeah.
I'll
We
make
have
a
the
copy
expense
for
side, but not the revenue.
I'm sorry?
We don't have the revenue,
We
we have
don't
the
have the
expense.
revenue side of it.
I apologize, I never think of revenue, I think of expenses, but yes, there's revenue generated.
Mr. Trudell,
To the town administrator. This goes back to my previous point with the municipal director in that when I sit here and I look at these things and I listen to what he's saying, I like to be able to convert it into, you know, what's his real net cost when he's operating. She's looking to look at revenue so that you can see where the offsets are to that. And I will send you an email because I think it's unfair to blindside you. I had a number on retained earnings in the water pollution treatment facility several years ago, and I'm going to ask for a history of that going back last 5 or 6 years to see what shape our retained earnings are in the enterprise fund.
They were certified at, we were around about approximately 3.3 to $3.5 million after FY'13.
Okay.
after FY what?
13.
I think,
Good.
give me a minute, I'll pull it up on there.
We certified, to what number they were certified at?
About 3.3 to 3.5 million. And if you give me, if you ask, yeah,
Okay,
$3,512,000.
$3,512,000,
I was thinking 3.5, and then I said, I might as well put a low end too in case I'm off.
okay. We realize numbers isn't your forte, you're a hands-on guy, we realize this, but we want to see how we can, if you're on track to what you
Yes.
said, and
I'm
how we,
hoping, yes.
and how we can make this better.
Because
I mean,
the retained earnings is, at the end of the year, we'll kick back. When I come on board, it was 2 point something, then it went to 2.8, now it's 3.3. So any surplus in my budget goes to retained earnings.
Right.
And so we are, and so if I'm off, I try to be off on the good, so that it goes back to the budget, into retained earnings. But nonetheless, I can't get you the figures, but I'll do my very best to get you those figures. And when you have them, I think it'd be more clearer. I apologize, I don't think of revenue, I apologize. I don't present that, but
That's the most important thing we're looking for these days.
Thank you.
With everything the way it is, we're looking for revenue
okay.
This
to
is
to
actually,
help you with your expenses. We're truly here to help, not to criticize.
And I appreciate that. And I
Okay.
understand that totally.
Okay.
It's never as adversary for me, because any help I can get to make me better at what I do is a blessing for everybody. So please
And
understand that. I understand that.
We all understand that
Yes.
of you too. Yes, Mr. Trudell?
And I'm not going to put you on the spot on this one because it's politically loaded. Do the selectmen solicit your opinion on what the sewer rate should be? That's a yes or no question. We'll leave it
Yes,
there.
and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Well, we also understand that it's gotten a whole lot better.
Yes.
Yes.
My question goes back to the retained earnings, and again,
Yes.
it
Get
may
to
be
use
more
a Ouija
appropriate
board to figure out
for
what
town
the rate ought to
administrator
be.
or the board of sewer
It's the
commissioners.
same board that Congress and
Do
United
we
States
have a
uses.
handle on the liability for betterments that are paid off ahead of time? Because that number should be in that retained earnings, and that's my concern. We have debt service that's going to stretch out over the length of the contracts. If we have people who pay off early, we're still liable for their share going forward out of the full term of that bond.
Yeah, just so you understand, when we take out a bond, if I say something wrong, correct me, please. We can't pay it off early. If you get a 20-year bond, you get money in advance. Like on a personal individual, you always can prepay or pay in advance. We can't, we have to pay it over 20 years.
Right, so
So
it's-
that money sits, it probably, when the town treasurer comes in, you might want to have a little more, if you want, a detailed discussion about the retained earnings account.
That's who to have it with, okay?
Because the way it goes in, it's a little confusing, because it's gone back and forth a couple times, how it was handled. And and that's an issue. There's a reason why it's kind of building, but the answer may not be what everybody wants to do. It looks
Because
good on paper.
some of that is encumbered for future
Well,
payments that would
it's
not.
encumbered, but I believe we, as of right now, I am under the understanding that we have money sitting that will cover our liability.
Reserves.
As of right now.
Do we have any more plans of adding any more sewage in the near future?
No, we do. Contract 3 is still out there. We're waiting to hear from the state. I contacted Mr. Chief yesterday. The governor has not released yet his budget, if you will, for SRF funding. And once that comes out, we've applied for the funding. So if we're on that list, then we'll have the funding, and then it'll be up to the sewer commissioners to decide what our next move is. So once I gather information, I'll present to the sewer commissioners, and then
Whereabouts are you looking, what is the next section?
it is Mayflower Ridge and Agawam Beach. That's contract 3 of our comprehensive water management plan. And one of the things, they'll wrestle with it, and they've got to handle it, and I have confidence that they will. But one of the things is that should we abandon and reorganize and do another comprehensive? Those are all questions out there. So my answer is, once we find out this funding, we'll present it to the sewer commissioners, and I'm sure the roundtable will figure out what's economically feasible and the best move with our limited resources and limited capacity where they want to go. Now, we've already budgeted for that capacity for Agawam, but we may want to do other things. So, but we have to, by comprehensive wastewater management plan, right now, we have to complete that, which is Agawam and Mayflower, as of right now. We have the option of canceling that and telling the DEP, or I shouldn't say telling, but suggest DEP that we would like to abandon, cease, and then bear another one. All those options are out there, and I don't have definitive answers for you, but this will be a process, and
In all due respect, I mean, that area is, it's important, but you've got these mobile home areas that are just,
I
that are
agree
killing
100%.
everybody.
I agree 100%, but that's not my call. But I think if we roundtable and start looking at it, absolutely. Because the whole concept was to better the waterways, which would be the Wareham Basin and Weantic River Basin and the Agawam. So we should concentrate.
Hopefully our board of selectmen and our town administrator can work this out in a professional way, and people will be treated fairly and equally this time. And because I think we've all learned, I mean, I've been in town for years. When you do a section of sewer, we've done 2 or 3 sections at a time. You take all 3, you might include it in 1, 2, 3, but you take all 3, total them up, and divide it. You don't do this one this way, this one that way, and penalize people like that. It's just, it's not right what we did. And we're correcting, we're living with that problem. And I just want to make sure, I'm all for cleaning the waterways, but let's clean what's really causing the problem. And you and I know, those mobile home areas are killing us.
I have confidence that the sewer commissioners and the town administrator will definitely look at this in a very orderly fashion. And I think my responsibility is to present to them what my feeling is to where we are, where we need to go. And I have all the confidence in the world that they'll take that and other fact gathering and make a good decision, because the goal is to clean up those 2 basins.
Yeah.
And don't lose sight that we still have a loading coming from the government as to what we can put in the Buzzards Bay, our portion of it, into these basins. And that's going to factor in also. So I think they'll make the right decisions, and my obligation to give them the right information.
Yes, this is,
With regard to the revenue from septage, can you tell me whether that's, the number I'm looking at is 150,000. Is that your projected for this year, or is that?
It's projected based upon last year's revenues.
Is there, what's the trend there? Are we going up, down?
We're stagnant. Actually went down. Septage went down quite a bit and stagnated around $150,000. I'd like to raise that, and I'm proposing some changes.
Is that because of what the charges are?
Charges, yes. We charge 18 cents a gallon for Carver, Plymouth, or anything around surrounding towns other than Bourne. And so 18 cents, folks, it's cheaper to drive to New Bedford or some other area. So they don't come, they just ignore us. So what we're obligated to do is to lower the price if we want that business. So I'm trying to do that to raise that revenue.
And we
Also,
have the capacity.
yes, we have the loading capacity to do that. It's all based on loading strength of product. We have the capacity to do that, yes, ma'am. And Bourne, I want to raise that a little bit because we agreed to give them back an extra penny. So we lost $10,000 in the transaction, I want to recoup that $10,000. So we're trying to, again, revenue. Same thing with the EDUs. We're trying to gain more EDUs because that's our revenue. We projected 250 additional EDUs. When you say to yourself, there's only 247 houses added to the system. So how do you get to it? But there's multiple EDUs. There's many multiple families out there that we don't grab. So we're losing revenue. So in that big picture of the projects coming on and the projects that we're completing, we're going after EDU audit, generally speaking, to grab all that missing, if you will, the bucket, water pouring, any analogy you want to use, but we want to grab that revenue so I can stay on top of my expenses by making sure we have plenty of revenue that we need to do. So that's part of the financial part, the revenue side of it. That's what we're trying to do revenue-wise to gain enough money to get everything done.
Guy, if you don't, I'm sorry if you don't mind. Can you just, if somebody's listening at home, the septic, just a quick 1, 2, 3, where it comes from, who brings it, and such?
Sure. Septage is from septic tanks, cesspools throughout the area. Town of Wareham, town of Bourne. We have an agreement, intermunicipal agreement with Bourne. We take their septage. So septage is a product that comes from homes that are not on sewer. And we gather all that up. They come to the pump state, the treatment plant. We put it through a process, and we treat it. Grease is from restaurant tanks, if you will, tanks outside and inside. Grease is a big byproduct of restaurant production. And we have to remove it and bring it to treat here because if we send it down the lines, it plugs sewer. We had a blockage this past weekend was caused specifically by grease. So grease is a nemesis to the treatment facility, the infrastructure. So grease, we send trucks out. Private contractors are hired by the grease company, by the restaurant, and we ask them to do this. And so they go out there, they pump it up, bring it to us. We segregate it. We take the liquids out of it. We get the solids, and we treat the solids. If you will, take as much water as we can out of it, treat the water, and send the residual solids with our sludge in the process of normally treating at the treatment plant, and send that to Cranston to be burned. We're working with a digester now. It's a small one. We're trying to digest that, even to go after those costs of trucking, because trucking is getting higher. If you look at the hauling contract with wastewater services, every year it creeps up, and I'm trying to get a handle on it. It's trying to get a handle on it. So, and to be very, very frank, and that's why I need, no insult, Frank, that's why I really want someone at the plant that has financial wizardry, because I need someone that is going to explain to me every single penny relating to the flow of water, if you will, through the plant. What does it cost me per gallon? Not just basic division. Here's what I spend, here's what I take in, here's your number. Within those numbers, there's numbers that are beyond me. And I want someone to understand that so I can work closely with, that can advise me as I try to make decisions and things I'm doing to say, Guy, that's financially foolish. That's financially wise. And so to have that person close to me doing that, I think will be a win-win-win situation. I call it a bookkeeper, so forgive me, but I think it's more than that.
We'll call it a financial wizard, that sounds good.
Yes, a financial wizard to help me, because that's what we need there. That's what we need. And so that's why I suggested that. Yes.
Three things. Solar, when are you starting revenue for that?
Solar is, it's at the hands of the consultant right now reviewing the RFQ. The RFQ has been vetted by the DOER, no, I'm sorry, Department of Energy, yes, DOER. They vetted it. It's been vetted through the town this summer. The selectmen have looked at it, the town administrator looked, the attorneys looked at it. Now it's in the hand of a company called Cadmus, C-D-A-M-S, Cadmus, who is right now taking that RFQ and punching holes in it to make sure that it's the best RFQ that's out there. That should be back next week. When it's back, I'll submit it to the town administrator, and we'll get it out in the streets. He'll do what he has to do with the selectmen, we'll get it out in the streets. We're also adding something. It's been brought to my attention. Someone said we should own this, bond the money and own this. I don't believe that, but doesn't mean that it's wrong. So I had them put a clause, or I asked them if they could fit a clause into this that simply states, at a given period of time. I understand that after 6 years, you take the depreciation, all the credits and recs, that it's paid for. Well, at that point, we may want an option to buy it for $1 and move forward. We may not want to. So I want to add that into that, and so we have that option. and also recover a third-party fund, so we're gonna add that to it. So it should be out next week, and we'll get it on the streets as soon as possible. So we're really working. I'm hoping, and a part of I didn't ask for an increase in electricity, because, but, again, I'm hoping to have it up and running.
How is the deficit between the 18,000 and the 23 or 22.3 being made up?
Beyond my pay grade, but I gotta tell you, I've heard conversations, and everybody's working diligently trying to figure out where the best avenue for it is. I can't answer that question, but again.
That's the sewer commissioner. The sewer commissioner must answer that, not the superintendent, so.
It's a sewer cost, right?
There's no decision yet, Tony.
Okay. Aren't there sewage treatment plants that have answered all of the concerns you have about the revenue potential of the various flows?
As far as quantifying every,
Yeah, but, I mean, there's some town out there that must be running A+, that can use a role model as to how you should.
it's such a tough question, because every single plant is different, every single one. Because it's based upon strength and product in your community. Do I have copper and you don't have copper? What is that? Do I have a lot of industry? You don't have industry. So it's not just a simple home. It's so much more involved. So everybody has different costs. Now, there may be a model. EPA sent me a model, and I'm trying to follow that model as to how to plug things in, but it's so unique. The Wareham wastewater treatment facility was recognized by the EPA as doing a good job. Okay, so that's fine. We're doing our job. But I want to know one step beyond that. What's it cost me to do that job? So to answer your question, it's so unique. It's so different. I mean, there's some basis, but it's so unique that I can't say, well, Bridgewater has a great plant. Give me your numbers and I'll follow your model. Well, Bridgewater has an entirely different process than I have. So it's too unique. Each system is unique. We have the MEL process, MLE process. That's unique. There's nobody else in this area that has that. We're doing tertiary treatment. We're doing a high level of nutrient removal. Well, we're the only one. So who do I go to? In this area. So it's to say yes, follow this guy. It's impossible. Everything is so unique. So that's why I need the financial wisdom to help me with our situation and what we need to do.
There are local towns that do have great. Lakeville has a brand new facility that's done very well.
I'm sorry?
Lakeville.
But they don't have.
No, I understand.
So,
but they do have the know-how administratively that we're lacking. Everybody's not going to fit your block, or we're going to fit. We understand that. We just want to make sure that we're doing things as efficient and cost-effective. We want to be. You don't want to be on the proactive. You don't want to be reacting. You want to be proactive.
Right.
And I understand as a person that's where you're coming from. Does anyone else have any more questions for Mr. Campino? Go ahead.
And this, you also may not be able to answer this. This may go to the Board of Health, but do we have any idea on how many non-sewered houses are actually pumping their septic systems on a regular basis and delivering septic?
No, we don't.
There's no way to determine that number.
No, because there's a law in place. Title V states you will pump annually. But that has to be enforced. It's not being enforced. So there's what we do is if you pump your house, it goes to us. We transmit that information to the Board of Health. So they can track it.
So there actually is a tracking.
They can track it, absolutely.
Who is doing it. We don't know who isn't.
We don't know who isn't doing it. So they would have to say, make a database and say, here's all the houses. These did it, so obviously these haven't, and then attack those individuals.
They do have a database, and you can call up to see if they're on septic system or what they are on. Before you build in an area, you want to make sure who's on and who's not on. So they have a great database, and they're starting to even build on it more because they've got a lot of nitrogen systems out there, and they've got nobody monitoring them.
Absolutely.
That's a huge issue right now. And the biggest issue with that is, like, a lot of these even inexpensive nitrogen systems could be used in the Agawam area instead of pushing this, to a small amount of people. We could get more for our buck by going after where the real problems are instead of going after where the small areas are. There's
My-
other
my-
solutions.
My concern isn't even necessarily problems, it's anecdotal. Like, you have older relatives in the area who never had a problem with their septic system and never pumped it. If it isn't broke, why fix it kind of attitude? And my concern is twofold, you know, not so much financially, but capacity, is that if everyone in town if we pumped every septic system the way we were supposed to, can we handle the capacity? And what would that do to the numbers? And I don't expect.
I'd have to crunch them, every house, because 40% of the town is sewered, so I've looked at the other 60% and what that is.
Isn't,
really.
and of
Because
that
usually we're-
60%, a good
yeah.
portion aren't pumping, so.
And plus, the 40% may be congested, and then the 60% may be spread out, I don't know. And I have to look at that as far as volume and numbers, and we can do that. It would take a while, but we can do that. But, you know, again, and to answer your point directly, I may not have to pump as often as you have, so that would be factored in.
And that may not be, again, it may not be your question, that may be more appropriately the Board of Health and
Board of
the
Health.
Board of Sewer Commissioners, but that just, in the overall scheme of things, that plays a part on this.
Well, to Mrs. Brock's point, and forgive me, but, you know, we only have so much sewer left in the treatment plant, and we all know that we're coming against it, so we can't put our heads in the sand and ignore that. So what do? We've got some ideas, but one of the things that she talked about is these little areas centralized. So you've got 50 homes, you put a 50-home system in. And so they all go to a small package plant. It's treated, and then it's sent to us because it's based upon, we have more capacity by what they call loading, strength, than we have physical gallons. So if it's pre-treated to a plant in a neighborhood, and then it comes to us, or right to the groundwater, there's options. We can alleviate the concerns you have, because eventually we all need to get on sewer, because we're a seaside community, and that's the direction we're going to. We have to get there. And the question is, how do we get there? Economically, feasibly for the homeowner. That may be a way.
One of the other major problems are, we've got, and he's dealing with, and the Board of Health is dealing with, we've got a lot of 2 and 3 generation folks living in houses together right now. So septic systems that have been designed for, you know,
For summertime
for
occasional
two
weekend
bedrooms or
use.
vacations, they're facing, there's a lot of taxing on the system. But I think if we concentrate and stop, you know, using the smaller systems in areas, like you said, we can, because we know that it's working. We know, we finally have some numbers, I believe, from is the estuary report ever get?
Hasn't been finalized.
That still hasn't been finalized.
No, because that's going to give us our TMDL, and so
Yeah.
we're waiting. And I think the governor mentioned about financing that, because it's
Yeah.
financing.
Yeah.
Because to do these reports, it's millions of dollars, and so
Exactly.
I believe the governor talked about releasing funds to finalize this report, because the Cape is in the same situation.
Yes, they are. Yes.
Aren't those reports coming out of the University of Massachusetts?
Correct.
The Dartmouth area?
Correct.
Yeah. And I understand that they are way behind in the reports, and the first ones are coming out. I know we're not on the top of the list, so it's going to be a while.
So the governor's trying to, because they talk about funding, and remember, we're making decisions based upon numbers that have been gathered years ago. And I have a hard time believing that all the efforts the town of Wareham has done and the money we spent, it hasn't had a significant impact, because they projected 12 parts per million of nitrogen. We're down to 4.
Exactly.
Or less. So I look at those facts. So they base it on 12 to clean. We're at 4. So the cleaning has to be happening. I can't quantify it, but somebody should quantify it, so we really are. Because we're talking about spending money. And I don't like spending money blindly. Well, we think, no, there should be they should quantify this, finalize it, and say, here's the real number today. Now, here's what you have to react to, and here's what you have to, here's your loading capacity to the bay and move forward. So that will help us all tremendously.
Exactly.
I agree.
So once that report comes out, I think Wareham's going to be very pleased with what they have accomplished, and hopefully they have a better plan on how to get there, get the most buck for their
Paying for their buck.
Bang for the buck, and I
bang for the
agree.
buck. That's what I wanted to say.
And I want to say this, you know, Silver Wareham is controversial, always has been, and maybe always will be. But I got to say, the town of Wareham has stepped to the plate and has cleaned up the bay. They saw an issue, and we're tackling it. Now, we've not always done things right. Our hearts have always been in the right place. Maybe our procedure, the way we went about it, wasn't, you know, the best. But I got to say, the town has made a commitment to answer, and some communities aren't there yet. they're waiting for this, waiting for that, and Wareham has. We've taken on 12 projects and we got 11 completed at a tremendous cost and a lot of, contentiousness or whatever, but it's done, and I believe we can't lose sight of that, and
No,
I think we have to continue to say that.
We just have to make sure that we progress in the right direction.
That's right, and what happens is in our imperfect states, we try very hard and we make these mistakes because maybe we don't share enough, maybe we don't help each other enough, I don't know what the answer is, but I think we've learned to start working as a team. And I'm seeing that in different committees. We all have to work together because you or I can't solve this, but together you and I have a better chance of solving it. And so you and I, we don't have to agree on all things, but we need to agree that we have a common goal. And I think that's what's starting to happen. So I'm excited about it. I really am.
Barry, anybody have any more questions? And you will make sure that we get all, go ahead, Mr. Heath?
Yes.
I have more comment than a question.
Okay.
It comes down to the financial side and financial personnel, et cetera. One of the key things I think we have to look at right now is, yes, we have a couple of bookkeepers in other locations. Our accounting department consists of 2 people, and one's a half-timer. So we have 1.5 people in the accounting office that's trying to do all the payable functions, et cetera, and I don't want to bring up the IT system and the great response times we get when you're trying to do the work. All right? So we wind up in the situation, as many companies do, where you also have locations that are outside that represent a significant amount of your business, and they have different accounting systems, there's different financial management that needs to be done, et cetera. This is a separate business, and the skills to work within that and the enterprise fund, as defined by the Department of Revenue, what needs to be required. It's not the same type of functions that you do in the town accounting side. There are differences still. All right, there is a guide for enterprise funds put out by the Department of Revenue that I think everybody needs to sit down and read. And the first thing we're going to find out is that we are not properly reporting this.
I know.
All right, we are not budgeting it according to the state recommendations. We're not, they're talking about and making strong suggestions about actually doing line item budgeting and treating it much like we would treat the town, including deficit spending on individual line items, et cetera. More importantly, we like to look at the finance, we look at the finance only from the perspective of paying the bills. Well, there's a lot more beyond that, and I think you've heard a lot of that today. There's a lot of planning that needs to be done. There's a lot of analysis, there's quotes. When invoices come in, there's verifications that need to be done, all right, and it all goes back into the financial numbers. There's also strategic planning that needs to be done, all right. I'm trying to figure out when Mr. Campino sleeps, all right? Because a lot of this is winding up on his desk when it really shouldn't be. His job really is to management, handle it, all right? And he needs the support to give him the analysis that says in the numbers, are you doing it right or wrong? All right? Now, the other piece is, like, we've complained repeatedly that we're not getting any reports. We don't get any reports because there's nobody to do them except him. But then also, I look at the list of things that have to be done. I look at contract 1, the contract 2, what's being constructed, the changes. We want to add the grease. I mean, there's only so much you can put on a plate on a daily basis. So part of the reason I think that we're not getting the reporting that we would like to see, the sewer commissioners are not getting it, is we've never dedicated the resource. I think it's a reasonable request to say, hey, it's that time. All right, now, can that person report to the accounting department? Well, it could report to the accounting department. However, I will tell you, physical presence or where an accountant sits makes a big difference in how he spends his day or her day.
That's true.
If they're here in the town and something comes up about somebody's soda bill didn't get paid, well, maybe this week's tasks that need to be done on this on the water pollution control don't get done because there's a physical presence standing there demanding a payment or something. All right, and not only that, but there's a communications issue between the manager of the facility and the person who provides him with the financial information that he needs to make a decision at any given point. So a lot gets delayed. All right, and there's also even the matter of the relationship that the two of them have to have. The separation, it doesn't have to be 5 miles away. I will tell you, the separation of a single building can change the entire management of an organization. So I think it's about time that I agree that the individual in there maybe reports to you know, a centralized accounting function. However, there's a need to have the person in that building directly responsible for this $7 million
$7
business.
And that's what it
Right?
is.
So that when we have questions like what are the retained earnings, we don't have to go to the treasurer of the town to find out what the retained earnings are. We can actually go to that individual and find it out. If we want to know about chemicals, they can give us the comparisons of the types of things we need. They can sit there and say, this is you know, what we're doing for the capacity we always had. Here are the new items, here's been the exceptions, et cetera. And he can provide that to the guy immediately without him having to stop his daily work, all right, to answer all these questions. Planning-wise, you know, I know a town administrator who said to me that, gee, I don't have an assistant like my ex-boss did. Okay? And I have to say, within our own town, adding a financial analyst made a huge difference.
Of course it did.
All right? So, okay, we should have learned our lesson. Now we're hearing the appeal of the water pollution control supervisor saying, hey, to manage this facility correct, I need financial information. Let's not bicker and fight about where that person is. Let's get the person, get it as close to him as possible. When the reports are coming, and we're satisfied that it's functioning properly, then we talk about where it reports to beyond him, if we consolidate the office. And it's gonna be a while before we consolidate, but this can't wait until that consolidation.
I
And
concur.
if yeah, the other side was, I've said it before, as far as the administrative stuff is concerned, that he should be paying for, if people have problems with water pollution control, charging the town, or I'm sorry, the town charging water pollution control for the services that it provides, then fine, let's go back to all the departments, find out who's doing what, and create a new office in this building that has nothing in it but the sewer department. Easy. That, I will tell you right away, that that's gonna cost us more money. We won't get that much benefit out of it. We have a nice way of doing it. Unfortunately, we're not paying for it, and we should be. But this financial person, I'm sorry, guys, my position is, it needs to go in there. It needs to go in now, not next week, not next month, not next year. It needs to go in there now, so that everybody has a confidence that it is doing what Guy says it's doing. I'm not saying that it's not, it's just we can't see it.
We can't see it.
And we need to see it. And we need to start reporting that business in compliance with the DOR's desires.
It is $7 million.
I'm not sure I agree completely with my compatriot on my left, but
Then shut up.
I do believe that we do need him, and right now, he's got to be in your department. I don't think there's any question. He or she.
I think it's that part of what you said.
Yeah, I said right,
Now we know why you're getting on finance
right
committee.
now.
Right, yeah, I know, I said that in the future, you know,
Thank you.
go on, I'm sorry.
Nope, that's fine. Anybody else have any comments or questions? Thank you, Mr. Campina.
My pleasure, thank you. I appreciate it.
Doing a great job, thank you.
I'm trying, thank you. And I'll.
Today, anyway.
I'm sorry?
We'll call you tomorrow and tell you what you're doing wrong.
Yeah, I know, but that comes with it, so it's not.
Today, you're okay.
Tomorrow, I'm out today, I'm okay. And I'll try to answer the questions, and I'll talk to Derek, and so we'll try to get the things that you asked.
You're lucky, I asked him to bring in samples of what clogged the sewer pipes.
I gotta tell you, I thought about it. Here's what we're going to do. I don't have the picture with me, I apologize, but in the manhole of the blockage, there is this wire from construction, you know, they call, what they call it, 4 wires, but anyways, it went through the whole bottom of the manhole and everything. So I have that, it's about this long, I have it. So I told him I'd cut a clean piece, and then I'd pass it around, and it wouldn't tell you what it is, say, this is, and you'd think it's a wire, and then and I'd say, now that was in the manhole. so
I used to do it to my boss all the time. I bring her in a broken pipe with it. This is what I'm dealing with. Show and tell's the best.
So that was, and then we could get going from there, but
Meeting might have taken a turn for the worse.
I said to Derek, I actually bought a towel. I said to Derek, well, maybe if I do that, I may need my towels.
Your
Thank
budget
you for
might,
not. I appreciate that. That's okay.
your budget might be cut.
You know, so, but we didn't do that. So. But we're excited about moving forward, Seymour. I can tell you, that's a great job. Thank you again.
Guy, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it, thank you.
Mr. Evans, thank you for coming in. As always, it's generally always a pleasure to deal with you. You've run a very difficult task. I've seen you in the office one day, which you're getting your truck fixed, and then the transmission going the next day. So I know you've been, you have more drivers than you have ambulances
Some days.
some days.
Just they're
All right.
getting older, so they break down more often.
All right, well, welcome, and let's
People too.
hear what you have to say today, sir.
Basically, the budget's the same as last year. There's just a slight increase of $4,000, and most of that's fuel costs, energy costs. And there's a slight increase in the billing service because we did 300 calls more last year than we did the year before, and the billing is a percentage of the collections, so that had to go up a little bit. Other than that, everything's pretty much the same as last year.
You did 300 more calls. What does that mean to us financially?
Increased revenue, depending on how many actual transports there were on that 300.
And do you have a breakdown of the revenue here?
Don't have the, up to, well, for this year, our current revenue, collections are $589,566. And this year's budget's $849. So that projects out to 1.1 million in revenue. So the last 3-year average, we've done about $250,000 in excess revenue that goes back to the town.
250. How much more, how much are we losing by the condition of our?
Well, with the vehicles being off the road and just being able, one truck able to respond, and sometimes we have manpower issues, we lost $50,000 last year, in the last fiscal year.
Okay. Folks got questions here on the budget?
I guess I can take a shot if I. You said your budget's within $4,000, but I see that you, from FY'13, you reduced part-time help by $8,000, and you decreased your overtime by $3,000. So that's $11,000 down in that particular area. Your wages only went up to $8,000, so in essence, you reduced salaries by about $3,000.
Yeah, that was budget cuts. It's not that we needed to reduce them, it's just they were reduced.
I understand. I note that if I take your regular pay and I take the $170,000 in overtime, I have 36% of the cost of wages. If I take your total of $680,976 and look at the $170,000, it works out to 24% overtime in your department.
We only have 2 people on duty at any one time. And if someone takes a day off, we have to fill that position. It's not like we can leave that chair empty. You need 2 people to run the truck, at least. So with their contract, if they take a day off, they get the same amount of time off that everybody else does in town, vacations, holidays, sick time, because in this business you get sick. And the time that they have is the same as everybody else. Unlike someone in town hall, if they call in sick or they take a vacation day, that chair goes unfilled. I have to fill that chair.
Right.
So, and with 8 people, it's,
How many working ambulances do you have right now?
2.
Just 2?
We have 3. The state took one off the road and it's still off the road.
And what do you estimate that's costing us to have that off the road?
Well, like I said, with the year before was 50,000. I mean, we're making the majority of our calls, but we've had trucks down. We have a transmission replaced that was over holiday weekend, so it was out of service for a week. By the time they got the transmission in, got it installed, and had that day where the mechanics weren't working. We're probably maybe in a $10,000 range right now.
If I might again.
Certainly.
You have the capacity to keep 2 ambulances operational, but you're telling me you only have 2 people on
Right,
it.
we call And that's the other part of the overtime is if there's additional calls, we have to call in people off duty. And if the full-timers come in for that call, which by contract they get their first call, they get paid overtime for that. And we have call people that can also come in. And if you have 8 people to call from the full-timers, 2 of them are working, so that leaves 6. And if they're doing other family issues or have commitments, they're not available to come in. So we rely on our call people, and a lot of those call people have full-time jobs, so they're only available at certain hours. And we just put on 7 new on-call people in November or October, and they're doing some training. So we put 3 of those 7 that are out available for calls. So we're trying to build up our part-time force, and the only time they get paid is when they actually work.
Marilyn?
If that's, to David's point, that's my question. I'm looking at an overtime budget line item that is, David did the math, 24% of the salaries. Now that you've taken more call people on, can this number be reduced? Is this?
If we have, well, by contract, they get the first shot at the open shift. If they don't want it, then it goes to the call people. So maybe with negotiations, and one of the other things that I wanted to do was put a 3rd person on shift with the call people, so there would be no benefits. We'd just pay them their part-time rate, have a 3rd person on. If someone took a day off, we'd still have 2 people, and
That
we wouldn't have to.
seems
But
to make
that's
more
something that's gonna have to be negotiated through contract.
And we're not allowed to talk about
Right.
contracts because that's not our business.
That's something we've discussed, but it hasn't got to that point where,
I'm happy to hear that you're discussing it because it just
Yeah.
seems ludicrous. I understand that we want to avoid the scenario of getting to full-time people with benefits, but on the other hand, to pay out that in overtime.
it's just the nature,
Yes.
because you only have so many people. If you had more people, more shifts,
Right.
you could reduce the
You could do
overtime,
it,
because
yeah.
you could go down to a minimum level, a manual level.
Um,
And part of the thought process of the 3rd person was, we'd have a person already there if we had a second call, that we could not have to call on that second person. We could get the trucks on the road and
Okay,
increase the revenue.
so this number that I'm looking at doesn't represent the new, this is what you're estimating based on previous years. This doesn't count, the overtime number doesn't include the on-call people, doesn't reflect.
No, that would be the
Okay.
part-time line above.
Okay. But you
And
don't think we can reduce this overtime line?
Not with the current
not right
contract.
now.
What about the Burgess plan? About how much do you generate with that fund?
That's around $10,000.
10,000?
Can I, Madam Chair, how do we calculate overtime?
Time and a half times their hours.
Is there a minimum amount, number of hours, though? I mean,
If they work a
we say
shift-
time and a half, but if you call somebody in, are
If
they
they-
guaranteed a number of hours? or
Yeah,
what?
they get 4 hours calling in for emergency call.
It's 4 hours? So even if it takes an hour, they still get paid for
Right,
4?
and most of the calls take at least 2 hours.
Okay.
But if they come in for call, the revenue offsets the cost of them coming in.
Anyone? Yes?
When does your contract come up again?
Which contract?
Negotiations.
That you could negotiate the on-call?
I think it's already expired. They're,
We're hoping to meet with them
yeah, they
this
have,
month.
yeah, they haven't met, they've been in contact, but there's been no negotiations yet.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask another question on the overtime, if I may, and that is, if we have an individual who's out, someone comes in and covers, can that person also wind up with their regular shift as well, so they're working 16 hours rather than?
Well, they work 24-hour shifts, but broken down to 10-hour days and 14-hour nights.
Okay.
So they, I don't understand the question. If they work overtime and still do their regular shift?
You're saying you bring somebody in, if you have anybody that goes on vacation, somebody has to fill in for that person,
Yeah.
right? So now we're talking about 7 people in an overtime slot. I'm trying to figure out how you cover that.
They're on their days off, because there's only 2 people on. They work, their schedule is 24 on, 24 off, 24 on, and 5 off.
Okay,
So when
that's
their
why
days
you-
off, they come in and cover. And that works out to 48 hours a week.
So only those people that are off are used for the overtime?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Can I divert to ambulances?
Yeah.
That rumor says that we're supposed to get a new one, is that correct?
I've not been part of those discussions.
Okay, then I will leave it alone at this
Nothing
point.
but a rumor.
I think one of the most interesting things when we were getting the free cash set was FY'12, the ambulance offset receipts weren't transferred over. So for our FY'11, and then FY'12 they had it. So about half of our 1.2 million free cash came from the EMS, approximately $600,000.
It's an excellent point. Thank you.
Anyone? Any further questions?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
I'll be back.
Okay.
You don't trust it?
Okay.
We have a big-
Who will say that they're on EMS, their healthcare benefits are not really, and then you put it in at 300, it's focused on.
Do you have something?
Pardon?
The healthcare benefits aren't included in the EMS.
No, they're not. We don't, as an offset is not like the Water Pollution Control Facility and Enterprise Fund. The EMS, we pay them totally out of the line and we don't charge back. So if you looked at the whole business aspect of it, the reason it was changed from an enterprise fund to an offset receipt was it was not self-funding on there. In other words, with all the benefits in there, it did not have enough money. As we all know, if an enterprise fund ends the year at deficit, the town side needs to cover that deficit. So it was not functioning and making enough money. Probably, it depends what the receipts are in any given year on there. You'd be close, if not, it might cost us a little money. So part of the point is, if we did it as an enterprise fund, it probably would not function. We'd be covering it with some money for all the functions. So therein lies the point. People, after what I just said, can you fund the ambulance through their department? And you will have to reduce from the town side budget to fund that ambulance.
So, it goes to my idea that this is a revenue generator.
It isn't.
Is there a way to make it a revenue generator? Or, and this will be a political question later, I'm only looking at the financial end of it. Does it make sense for the town to be in the EMS business?
You said it's a political point. I think
Okay. So let me go to the financial part of it. Can it be a revenue generator?
It can be, but like most of our things, we've let it get behind to the point where it's going to cost us money and it's going to need a lot of money put into it. So don't forget, we also have a whole building over there which needs to be maintained, heated, everything on there. So I imagine we'd really have to do a complete analysis on it, but you're right on the edge, and it's going to probably end up costing money maintenance-wise, maintenance of the ambulance or having a true replacement plan.
And I'll take you off the hot spot because your answer to that was perfectly correct. It's a political question, it's a town decision. And it's not something that we can look at now, but that's a question. And I don't know if anybody on this board has looked further into it or what the thoughts are.
Not that particular question, but to deal with the revenue question, all right? We don't get to bill just whatever we want.
That's
all right?
what I'm saying.
No matter what we bill, there's certain, like Medicare only pays so much. All right, people that receive, that, are getting state aid, right? There's only so much that the state will pay, et cetera. So that's the problem you run into when you try to make it into a revenue generator. You get down to that focus of, okay, who doesn't have insurance so we can charge them more?
And I
Right?
want to
Or you have to make a lot more runs, right? And we don't have the equipment to make a lot more runs.
Thank you. I just want to back up a minute and clarify. When I say it's a political question, what I really mean is in the best sense of the word. What are we doing for our citizens? Is this a service that we really need to provide to our citizens? Donna briefly mentioned the Burgess plan. For anyone who isn't aware of that, it was you paid a set fee. and you would get ambulance service. I don't know.
$50 a year.
Hmm?
$50 a year.
$50 a year. I mean, obviously, that's a huge loss in financial terms, but it's a great benefit to citizens in need. So that is where it becomes political, that we look at the need versus the cost. Our job here is just to look at the cost. So the question is, does this make sense to have this as a
Well,
town budget?
my
If
concern
I
is,
may, I
certainly.
want to bring the experience back from the Association of Massachusetts Financial
Thank you.
Committees, okay?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And what we basically heard, the one that I went to, was there was many towns that could make a case for it as there were towns that could make a case against it, right? There was no fixed date, it really had to sit down and go over a lot of facts, right? And it seemed to be more a case of the larger the population, the less there was a chance that it might make something for you, but the larger population were the cities that could at least afford to pay for it. Right, but I will say, the one thing I did hear there is there were many that were saying yes, as there were saying no. Some had gone private, and the ones that were still doing it did not want to go private, because it was going to cost them a lot more money.
And I miss having Bonnie here because she was she's at jury duty today, by the way, for anyone who misses her. She is the one who has the most hands-on experience, and she's been very complimentary to our EMS. She's been very proud of the work that they do. But again, when it comes down to numbers, and because we don't have the offset here to know what it really costs us.
and that's what we need to have. We need to know what it's costing. We're just seeing the expense side again. Is it worth it?
Yeah, I mean, because the expense side, I say, well, it costs a lot of money, but if there's an offset there, then maybe it doesn't cost that much money, and it's not up to us to make that decision, but it's,
And
again,
we also know that they get the most time off of anybody else in the town.
well, there'll still be work. I assume if you privatize this, that somebody will step in. It's the same issue as the school buses or any other kinds of transportation. If we're not doing it, someone is still going to do it. Not our decision to make, I guess, but just, no one wants to talk to me about this, that's fine, okay.
It will be more political than it will be financial, I tell you that.
Well, everything's more political than it is financial, but I just sat through a meeting last night where the schools don't have enough money to run, and I heard a huge commitment from members of this board and other members in town to support the school budget, so it's gotta come from somewhere.
One thing to also keep in mind too, Mary, as Mark said, we have 210 miles of road. Covering this town is a heck of a lot different than covering a lot of other towns
Exactly.
that have the same size population, because they so close. You know, that's the other problem. Response times, et cetera, there's much to be said about the advantage of having our own, where we know the ambulances are right here in town, and with the reciprocal agreement we have with other towns for coverage. All right? I think I see the Bourne ambulances more than I see the Wareham, because I'm on the border.
Yeah.
All right, we have 210 miles, that's a lot
And I know that we're
of
close to
distance
parts
to
of
cover.
Plymouth, and I know that we have Toby here in town, so there's again, a bigger dialogue that needs to take
Yeah,
place.
much better.
One thing we also forget is they have to, by mandate, will have to transport people to either Boston or Providence.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also the communities where they're near to the major medical centers, because Toby does, the emergencies and some of the certain things they do, but they will also be mandated with some of the changes they have to transport people to Providence. Now we have them off the road or up there for 2.5 hours.
Exactly.
So,
Because we don't have a pediatrics ward anymore. There's a lot of children being brought by ambulance.
so a community that's
I think
right next
she's made a
door to
good
some of
point.
those centers would have cheaper costs than we would on it.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
What was that last thing?
Said some of the communities that are near some of the medical centers, such as Providence or Boston, would obviously have cheaper. It would cost them less to make those runs because of time and
Yeah.
even fuel.
Yeah, exactly.
But if it isn't standing on its own bottom, and we're looking for priorities as to where we spend our money, I think the point is well taken. This may be very worthwhile and everything else, but it falls off because it isn't self-supporting.
No?
That's a potential, but the other side is if you go private, let's say it costs us $50,000. in the end. We go back, we put everything in, it's costing us 50. If you go to a service other than what we're doing, it could cost us 250. That's why the analysis is,
Do
it
it-
really needs to be done, is what would it cost us on the other side?
Why would it cost
What
us
would it
anything?
cost us anything?
I'll have to go back and pull the analysis. It does wind up costing the towns. It does wind up, I'll have to get the analysis out of the Mass Association of Financial Committees. It's not,
Because we,
there's still a cost to the town. There's still a cost to the town.
Is the service being performed?
Pardon? Is what?
You're saying the service has to be performed, and we're paying for it, is that what you're saying?
when we were down to one ambulance
Yeah.
and Bourne picked up, we lost the revenue, right?
We lost that
But we didn't
Okay.
incur, we wouldn't have, we as a town, when we say we, we're not talking about we, the town. That's, I guess, my confusion is I'm not sure what the liability, what the cost
I'll
of
get
the
the
town.
numbers for you. I'll get the numbers for you.
Because I would think it's private pay or,
That's the reason why people go back and do the analysis. It's not just
Exactly.
political decisions that figure into this. There are
well,
dollars and cents.
you
that
can't
figure
make a
into it.
political decision until you have the financial
I know, but
analysis.
nobody makes this for dollar profits, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Nobody does it for dollar profits.
Okay.
Okay.
Because they're not there. Anyone else in your speech?
Okay.
You did?
Yeah, I knew he did. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Underhill, you're on.
Good morning, everybody. The packet I just dropped off, basically is just the department flow charts, and a detailed breakdown of the actual individual budgets. The first flow chart is obviously department. The second one is just kind of a guidelines that I quickly threw together that explains, all our sites that we have. We've got currently 22 locations that are all connected together. We actually do have a new police station, a substation, and a new library that isn't on the list. I kind of forgot that we had those. The third sheet is kind of just a quick breakdown of the department itself. Currently we have 12 municipal buildings that we're supporting, 10 schools. We do have some equipment over at the hospital. We've got communications equipment set up at four different water towers in town, as well as we are providing some internet access to a Cranberry Bog to a wind turbine wind study, so that when we were actually looking for wind turbines, so we still have that set up. We currently have 13 physical servers and 1 mid-range system. We've got 20 virtual servers at the moment that we've created, 280 computers, 35 vehicles with computers in them. We've got 400 peripheral devices, switches, routers, printers. We're running 14 different operating systems at the moment, from Windows to Linux to Citrix. And we have over 50 different applications that we're supporting, between financial applications, permitting, licensing, GIS, dispatch, vehicle tracking. On the communication side, we have 9 phone systems that we support, 107 phone lines in town through all those 12 buildings that we support, 7 emergency call boxes around town at the beaches, 66 cell phones. We've got 33 cellular air cards and various laptops, tablets, for people who don't have vehicles. We've got 3 broadband lines going into, internet lines going into our facilities, a T1 line, and 6 TV channels through WCTV that come through us. That kind of wraps up and summarizes most of the stuff that we do. I thought we could go through the communications budget first. I figured that would be quick and easy, if you don't mind. Communications, repair and maintenance, that is strictly for The phone systems at those buildings. The police department is still under a lease. We're in year 3, or we'll be budgeting for year 3 of a lease on a new phone system that we put in the police station 2 years ago. The rest of them are straightforward. That's what it costs annually for each of one of those phone systems to keep it on a maintenance plan. Telephone, that actually includes our monthly invoices from Verizon for those phone lines, as well as our reverse 911 system that we use in case we have weather emergencies or other issues, emergencies in town. We need to notify the residents. Cellular telephone, that is for obviously cell phone for myself and the IT person that's at the police station. Internet access, we have the 3 internet lines coming, 3 broadband lines coming in. That also includes our email system for police and town. The only thing that's new to this budget is we have an email archiving appliance that was purchased a few years ago. That email archiving appliance now is off warranty to keep it under an annual maintenance. They're looking for $5,000 a year, which didn't quite know about until this year. Are there any questions on communications?
Anyone, any questions? Okay.
To the big department. The technology department. Right now, there's myself in the technology department. I tried putting in for a full-time person. Derek was nice enough to at least award me with a part-time person. The position has been vacant for, it'll be going on 5 years now. So, you know, that certainly is going to help, you know, in the support to the end users. Repair and maintenance, I pretty much had to cut down almost all our maintenance with the exception of our wireless network that connects all our buildings together. That's $50,000. We do have 22 locations that are connected. Out of those 22, 20 of them, excuse me, 19 of them are connected wirelessly. That $50,000 pays for the monitoring if a site goes down, as well as hardware replacement if lightning strike. And we do have a couple water towers that seem to be magnets to lightning lately. Pays for the replacement of that network. We, you know, again, another year, we've cut IT training out to fit our budget within the scope of what was asked for. It's probably been 10 years since we've had training in the IT department. Things are changing on a monthly basis, and without any training, it's not only hard on the IT department, but the end users. We don't have any means or resources to train the end users. You know, as we switch operating systems, new computers, new processes, we have no means of training them properly. On the purchase services, that is strictly, it's $94,000. It's a big dollar amount. That it goes to $7,000. That's our website. $17,000 of that is our permitting licensing software, our annual maintenance on that. $57,000 is our annual maintenance on our financial applications. And $10,000 of that is the maintenance on the assessor's appraisal application. Software, we get $97,000 for software. Of that, $58,000 of that is is a second year of a 3-year payment to Microsoft for their licensing that we purchased a little over a year ago. At the end of the 3rd year, that price drops down to somewhere around $10,000 to $15,000, and as Microsoft gets a new operating system, a new license, a new server application, we automatically get that, and we can roll it out to our employees based on our end user count with a volume license agreement that we have with them. And we wouldn't have to go out and purchase Microsoft Office. For this case, Office 2013 is coming out. With the volume license agreement that we have now, we would get it for free. If we were to go and purchase it individually at $400 a shot, that was our cost for the professional edition, times 100 users, it's $100,000. So it was costly to go to the volume license agreement with Microsoft, but in the long run, in the end, we'll be able to keep all our end users on the same version, updated version, as opposed to right now. We've got users using Office 2000, 2002, 2003, 2007. Everybody's on different versions. And it's really tough to keep up with the patches, and somebody's on 2010 and they send a document, somebody with Office 2000 can't open it. So that's why we ended up going to the Microsoft volume license agreement a little over a year ago. That's about it to the budget. Most of it's all licensing and maintenance. There really is no equipment included in it. Like I said, there's no training. We have a total of $1,978 budgeted right now to keep it in just for repair and maintenance on equipment, and that'll probably be gone within the first month or two of the upcoming budget. But we'll make do with what we have.
Questions?
Any questions?
Applause. My
So I
God.
kind of rolled through everything really quickly.
Is there a person that looks like you in Marion and in Rochester and in Carver?
Marion does have a person, to my knowledge. Rochester does not. Rochester, I think, outsources it. Middleborough has a full staff. Communities that's comparable of our size have about 6 people. Middleborough has 6. Falmouth has 6.5. Sandwich just switched over about 2 years ago. They outsourced everything, and they decided it was the better services and cheaper costs to bring it in-house and hire somebody. They have 2 people in-house.
Do you get together and discuss mutual issues or opportunities to share?
There is a Massachusetts Government Information Systems Association. They do meet 5 times a year. They usually take the summer off, but they do meet once every other month, and get together. It's usually up in Marlborough. That's kind of centrally located for the whole state. They usually get about 30 to 40 municipalities will have people at any one given meeting, depending on what the topic is. And they do discuss, the issues, and the issues are the same everywhere. There's no funding. Departments are being cut. IT is being asked to do more and more to cover the cuts in the other departments. Unfortunately, IT isn't being funded or staffed anymore. Ourselves here, we've just within the past year, we've opened up a police substation. It's open, 5 months a year. We've got a new library, you know, it has computers, telephones, faxes, all in it. That's now open, that now needs to be supported. We're looking at putting GPS units in all the town vehicles, you know, as well as, you know, video surveillance. It now seems to be fall underneath the IT department, and we're looking at putting video surveillance in more and more locations. We now have it at the sewer department, we have it at the harbor masters and on the pier. We're looking at expanding it, possibly town hall, as well as, you know, putting security systems in different buildings. You know, all that stuff, you know, is being thrown on the department with no more resources at the moment. So in the end run, the end user is the one that ends up taking the hit because, you know, the actual support time between the IT department and the end user support call is now, unless it's an emergency, you're looking at a good week away. At any given moment, I have 200 to 230 open support calls. When I left last Friday, I had 283 support calls. 189 of them I had yet to even get to. So consequently, Monday morning, I had 189 support calls to start before anybody else even walks in the door. And it doesn't seem to get any lower than that.
You're a generator of efficiency, supposedly.
Well, try to. You know, it's just unfortunately there's no more hours in the day. And you know, there's more and more support calls. Unfortunately, we tried to resolve some of our processes, and, you know, a little over a year ago, and it's hit a few snags, so we haven't been able to deploy it fully, which may reduce some of the support issues in the support calls, but it's being filled up with other technologies as things change. You know, again, you know, GPS tracking in all the vehicles, well, those devices will be installed probably by municipal maintenance, but somebody's going to have to manage and maintain it and oversee it. You know, the video surveillance, you know, somebody has to watch, make sure it's working. Police department does a pretty good job of watching, making sure theirs is working, but outside of that, you know, when was the last time the harbor master checked to see if it's even turned on? So, you know, it's just another process that has to be checked daily. You know, I could probably spend 2 hours a day just, the first 2 hours, just going through a checklist. Is this on? Does this work? Does this work? Does this work? Before I even answer the phone. You know, so, you know, that's the biggest problem with the department is we just don't have enough resources and staff. And unfortunately, I do know what our budget situation is, and I do know that we're probably not going to get any support. But I just figured I got to let people know about it. You know, if I don't complain once in a while, then nobody answers.
Mr. Gifford came with a whole list of things that he couldn't do, so maybe that's the other part of it, all the things that you could do.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, may I
Yes.
just ask the question? We have funded this position, at least for part-time. Is it advertised? Are we ever going to fill it? Why aren't we filling it?
Well, it's not advertised, it hasn't been filled yet. There may be, I'm looking at hopefully trying to upgrade it to a full-time position, which may be part of a transfer from somewhere else. I know what I have money-wise if it were not a transfer, and it could only be a part-time, so my goal would be to have a full-time staff assistant there, Mr.
And
Underhill.
I'm very sensitive to what it takes to bring in a new person and train him, and I realize what a drain on your time that will be, Matt, to have an assistant that you actually have to supervise. You can't move at the pace that you want to move in the beginning period, so there's a double-edged sword to bringing someone on board. And I'm also aware of when I say the next word, the same holds true. But what about an intern or working cooperatively, at least as far as training end users on programs? Is that something that's feasible to do?
We actually have looked at that, and we continue to look into those areas. We actually had 2 interns agree. One was to train, one was to come in and assist in the department and to learn as well. Unfortunately, neither one of those interns ever showed up.
Hence the discussion that we were having here. Volunteerism is a great idea, but the practical reality is not so good. As long as we're looking in that area.
We are still looking, and we're still, we actually have a possibility of an intern coming in to assist in our GIS system and try to organize to get that back up and running and back to where it needs to be. The state, in this nice gesture through Mass Highways this past year, has gone out to all municipalities and said, you know, if you don't have a GIS, we're going to create one for you. And if you do have one, we're going to, we want all your information, and we want to rescale it to make sure it fits our scale, and which will be the same that every municipality we use. Problem that we ran into is the state contracted out to about 6 vendors to do this. They did a nice job in rescaling everything. They found an issue in West Wareham between the town line and Wareham and Plymouth that they did resolve. The downside is they moved the maps, but they didn't move the annotations. So you have lot 1, 2, and 3. Well, on our map now, lot 1 is labeled on lot 2. And lot 3 has Main Street written right across it. And the state is saying, well, we weren't contracted to do annotations, but it'll be $30,000 for you to fix it. We have 0 budgeted for our GIS. Excuse me, with $2,500 budgeted for our GIS.
Go ahead.
You're going to ask it.
GIS, Government Information System?
Geographical Information System.
Geographical.
It's a mapping system.
And what is that? It's a mapping system?
It's a mapping system. It's, you know, it has the town map on it. It has a list of all the lots, all the streets. We actually have a digital version on our website that does, you know, give limited functionality for the end user or the resident to go on and click on it, click on a lot and see who owns it, see what the value is. You know, do an abutters list, you know, for a mailing list for, you know, abutters to a certain property. It allows them to zoom in a little bit. But, you know, what the real functionality is, you know, the police department wants to be able to start tracking, you know, break-ins. The harbor master wants to start tracking where his moorings are. The assessor not only needs it for, you know, assessing purposes, but, you know, there's all kinds of needs and functionalities to help the departments out. The conservation needs to know, you know, where the wetlands start. Town planner certainly needs to use it. Unfortunately, you know, we went, what, 4 years, 5 years without a town planner. And the previous town planner didn't want anything to do with GIS. So, you know, the only thing that we've done with it, for the most part, is kept up with getting the annual subdivisions digitized and on the lots. You know, we should have an, you know, town map that has an overlay of all our sewer lines. We haven't been given a digital update of the sewer lines since the original sewer projects, you know, 15 years ago. None of the new projects we've been given a digital overlay of. You know, so we should actually have, you know, all our sewer lines, where the water lines go, an overlay where the wetlands are. You know, to help the departments, you know, as well as you see at town meeting, you know, we have maps that we put up on the screen for the voters to vote on, to see where these areas are. That's all done on a GIS system. geographical information system. Unfortunately, ours has been neglected for the last, 6 years or so.
So it's got basic errors in it and it's out of date.
Correct.
I mean,
Yeah.
the original plan has errors in it, and then on top of that, it's...
Well, the original floor plan is fine. Obviously with the changes the state did, it's gonna cost us, some money to correct. We have been working with Bridgewater State University on a program where they do teach GIS, where we may be able to get an intern at no expense to the town to help us with some of this. It is becoming a tool that departments really should start using, and some departments really want to start using it.
Efficiency.
Just a comment, Madam Chair. Nothing personal, Matt. Yours is one of the few town departments that makes me depressed. This has been going on for years with inadequate resources, ill-defined, overarching needs. You're laboring under extremely difficult conditions, and my compliments to you.
And unfortunately, with the change in town administrator over the past few years, I'm not the department head. Town administrator is. So I'm going through a department head about every other year. So Derek's new on board. We certainly have not had the time at the moment to sit down and go over the department individually. The department, as well as probably staffing throughout the town, needs to be restructured. I know employees aren't going to like to hear that. Unions are certainly going to scream, but I can speak for my department. We need some restructuring.
I'm sorry. In what ways would you want to restructure?
The personnel.
I know, but
In processes, do we need a copy machine in every office? Do we need a printer on everybody's desk? Can we get away with departmental network printers? Do I have to have 7 printers in one office?
I'm sorry, 7 what?
7 printers in one office, because everybody has to have a printer on their desk, and then a copy machine, and then a network printer. Those all take resources to manage and maintain. If I could get rid of, if one department has 7 printers in it and I can get it down to 2, then there's less work in that office that I have to deal with and address. Less support calls. That's the type of restructuring. Duties. Town planner's in charge of GIS. Well, maybe the planning department shouldn't be in charge of it. Or maybe somebody else. That's the type of stuff that Derek and myself, when we actually have some time to sit down together and go over the individuals and departments, and maybe go over every single department and say, what are the deficiencies in each office, and what can we change? I talked to Derek the other day about permitting and licensing. We've got one licensing vendor that deals with the selectman's office, and a couple of years ago, a town administrator came in and signed a contract with another vendor for the other departments. So I've got one vendor that does licensing and another one that deals with these licensing and permits. We should have one licensing and permit system throughout the town, and not separate databases.
Procurement officer.
fairly basic.
It is basic, but unfortunately in the past we haven't been following the basics.
first step we took was putting the planning department with their copier that they have. They're right next to our mailroom with a massive copier. Their copier lease was up and said, don't
Not
renew
renew
it. No need for it. So we're taking it, I think, down in treasurer collectors, and we all, if anyone's been in a company, you know the copier game is a 3-year lease with a 1-year maintenance contract on there. Well, theirs broke, right, the
Yep.
top part on there. So we're not going to fix that, and their contract's not far from being up.
I think they've got a couple months to go.
A couple months, not going to renew that. We'll give them a smaller printer that they can manage.
You know, I talked to the harbor master, and I said, I can't do it anymore. You know, he's got, for a staff of 3.5, he had 5 printers in there.
Wow.
So we're doing away with all the desktop printers, and they've got 1 copy machine, and he has 1 network color printer. When they need to print something in color, everything else is gonna go to the copy machine. You know, if the town decides to move them back to town hall at some point, then we'll address the copy machine and sharing with somebody else. But that's the type of stuff that needs to get curtailed. You know, departments just can't go out to Staples and buy something anymore. The idea of going to a copy machine and having Office Max, you know, Rico, and you know, some other vendor here come in and say, all right, here's my lease on my copy machine, and nobody else look at it and say, all right, my lease is up, I'm done. Oh, well, you know, it's gonna cost you $400 because you now have to ship that back to New Jersey. It's not our responsibility. That's the stuff that needs to be, you know, really started looked at.
Go ahead.
Does the town get repaid for services to various other departments? Like, for example, I don't know whether you handle the waste department, for example, water and waste, but I would imagine you do.
On the IT department budget, the items that are outlined in blue actually get in kind back to the school department. The sewer department also does get some in kind back on the salaries portion of it. I haven't looked at, because we've had rotating door in the accounting department, but you know, 5 years ago when Bob Bliss was here, 70% of the IT department's salaries were charged back to between the school department and the sewer department.
How about harbor master? Does that get charged back?
No, it does not get charged back to the harbor master. Harbor master being the department of budget.
How about fire, water?
Fire departments and water departments, we do not support them internally. You know, if they do have an emergency or an issue, we will help them out, but they have their own stuff, and we don't support fire and water. We do support or provide internet access to the Onset Fire Department, and that was part of the agreement that was made for Onset Water, allowing us to put our antennas for our network on their water tower. And at the time, we were using the Onset Fire Station as a police dispatch or substation at the time, so we had to provide internet there anyway. So saying yes to that wasn't at the time wasn't you know, certainly wasn't bad. It wasn't going to cost us any more. We had to do it anyways.
Mr. Heath?
There's a couple of questions. And first would be, you're here for the town hall, you're on the town side for the IS. What other individuals do we have in the town, school, police, et cetera, that are also involved in IT as their main function?
The police department has a full-time IT technician. And they have a sergeant that the chief uses as his IT go person, I would say. The school department, last I knew they had 2 full-time technicians. a full-time secretary, a curriculum, an IT curriculum liaison. I hear they have another IT person, and then they have first round IT people at each school in their computer labs that do the first round diagnosis of stuff. They don't have the technology or the background to actually repair a lot of it. But then they also have, the teachers that teach the technology, and then the students, that are being taught it, they do use them periodically with certain projects and repairs and type stuff.
How many people does the school directly have assigned them? So there's at least two.
There is, to their technology department itself, they have four, and then the curriculum director, so 5.
Are these teachers or are they?
No. It's actually staff from the IT department.
So they have
Okay.
5 IT people.
Right. And the town provides the communications between buildings for the schools. It's all on our network. Their responsibility is once it goes into their routers or switches, from there it's their responsibility. But we provide all the financials for the schools. They use our financial system, so we support the end users that use the financials, the administrators, clerical staff.
I'd like to go back to the original question that you had, which was other towns and the people they have in IT. Do their departments include their schools, or do they also have separate?
Some do, some do not.
St. Marion was 6, I think you said.
Middleborough has 6.
Middleborough?
Middleborough's IT staff is broken up where a portion of them deal with school and a portion of them do not.
But it's all centralized.
It's all centralized.
Should that be our example, to centralize it all?
That's a battle that's not for me.
I didn't ask you to
Would it be
participate in the
benef-
battle, I asked you to give us some fair
Would it be
opinion.
beneficial to you to do it that way?
It would be beneficial to the town to do it that way.
Yeah.
So we're-
Okay, he is the town, I'm sorry,
there's-
the town
No,
side.
the town.
Town.
There certainly can be, complaints made on both sides, or a case made on both sides as to the benefits to and then the benefits against. Obviously, you have a payroll issue, or do you have, a principal or a superintendent that wants their stuff done right now? Where do you put your resources? That's where, when you get into a centralized department, do you have staff under one administrator and have staff that's dedicated strictly to these facilities and staff that's dedicated strictly to these facilities? I do know the municipalities, some where they do that, and others where they do not. And others where they just say, town, we deal with our own stuff, and school deals with their own stuff.
I saw these questions.
Oh, good.
My other question has to do with the efficiency of the system. I hear a tremendous number of complaints about sign-on times, and I also hear a lot of complaints still about response times. That's when I press the enter key, how long it takes for the screen to refresh.
Well,
What are our averages? I mean, what are our employees dealing with?
they are dealing with a lot of old equipment. The computers that are still on the desktops are still 11 to 13 years old. For instance, within this last week, I've had 4 computers, one of them was a brand new one, with hard drives all crashed. Unfortunately, I don't have spare ones where I can just, here you go, take, and you're back in business. Those users are down until that computer's fixed. And as far as the slowness, you're talking about computers that were bought with Windows 98 and have been upgraded to Windows, or put Windows XP on them.
What kind of
Ye-
times are we talking
You're,
about?
you're
How long does it take
talking,
to sign on?
the sign-on time can be anywhere from 40 seconds to 2 minutes.
Okay, and the response time?
And the response time, depending on the portion of the day, when you hit the enter key and what application you're in. If you're in a financial application, I don't care if you're on a new computer, it's gonna take you, if you're running a report, could run anywhere from a minute to a minute and a half to get that report out of our financial system.
So if I'm in the collector's office dealing with somebody on the phone, or even somebody standing in front of me, and I'm trying to answer
If
their
you-
question, I hit that key, they have to stand there and
If you
wait.
do an inquiry into, Matthew Underhill in the financial application, and you hit the enter key, and you wait. You're
Okay.
gonna wait at least a minute. There is no inquiry, it's a report, so you gotta wait for this report to generate, to view on the screen, to be able to answer that question, so if you've got somebody on the phone wants a quick answer,
If I'm processing bills, et cetera, all right, I'm just putting data input, what kind of response time?
if you're
is my
just
data?
entering data
Right.
into it, you're looking at, 2-3 seconds. If. for
But your
the
data
enter key to
entry is
the
a
enter
long
key.
time.
If you actually need a report out of the system, you're gonna wait a good minute, minute and a half, 2 minutes.
I have a follow-up question.
2 years ago, we invested $480,000, I believe, to try to rectify this situation. Did we get our money's worth, or
It
did
was-
we just,
It's in litigation.
do we have a, as I've said before, do we just have a new heater in your office?
It was $400,000. Unfortunately, that
Plus
is
the
tied up
licenses.
in legal right now, and I can't move forward with it.
You
I can't do anything until that legal issue has been resolved. Unfortunately, when it was brought in, the vendor never finished. They never followed the requirements of the project. And there was no training that's been provided. I've looked at the basic training. It would require me to be out of the office for a month just for a basic training, and it's $20,000 for 4 different applications for one person. And that's not certified, that's just, basic, administration type training on how to use the stuff. So we're hindered in the fact that, it's still tied up in legal. Trying to move forward, I don't have the resources to move forward, and even if we did have the resources to move forward, what happens in the legal process? Do we spend, hundreds of thousands of hours, trying to figure out how this stuff works internally because we don't have a budget to go for formal training, deploy this all out to the end users, and have legal come back and say, well, we've come to an agreement and the equipment's going back. That's my biggest fear.
Yeah. Well,
I have a further follow-up question on this too, because it relates to what you're just talking about right now.
we're not supposed
What
to-
is our situation with disaster recovery?
Thank you.
Our disaster recovery at the moment is just backups. We got backups we take off-site. That's all we have.
Does
Backup
that
of our
cover
existing
all
server.
machines? Are all machines backed up, or is
Just the
your-
data side.
It's what's on your side?
Just on the servers, the data on the servers.
So if there's data stored within individual offices, is there
If they
any form of program to back that up?
No. And I've told the end users, if you want to store documents on your desktop and you don't copy them to the network server, they're not backed up.
Do we have formal procedures to ensure that it is backed up to the server?
To make sure that the end user's data that is backed up to the server? No.
Yes. Do we have, do we have a policy out there, and is it enforced? Because the greatest concern has to be that we have some type of major function, or
Correct.
suddenly our tax records aren't around, et cetera, all right, and we have no way of recovering them. That has to be my greatest, it's like being in a business.
You know,
You lose your receivables file, that's great, that's all my money.
Yep. Well,
Okay.
you know, it's
So
all,
are we in that
that's all
kind
in
of
our
database?
financials, and it's all stored on the servers.
It is
And the
that.
servers are backed up. You know, it's the end user Word documents. If they want to create a Word or an Excel document stored on their
So they're
desktop,
working on the network.
they are working on the
They're
network.
working on the
I
network.
have, all the folders are directed to the server. If somebody chooses to override that and store
They can.
something locally,
They can do it.
you know,
yeah.
they can do it. Now, as I tell the individual users, and I'm at everybody's computer, I'm at everybody's desk, this isn't on the server. You don't put it on the server, it's not getting backed up. Your computer dies, and it's 13 years old on this model, and you've been having problems with it, and you've called me 3 times this week. I'll do my best to retrieve it when this hard drive crashes, but if it crashes, there's no guarantee that we're gonna get your data back. Move it to the server. Now, again, I'm one person. I can't be running tax reports, helping with payroll and doing this, and going to every user and writing policies and procedures. You know, we do have some policies, we do have some procedures. Unfortunately, we need a lot more of them.
Where is your backup stored?
Where my backup stored? Well,
Where's it stored?
at home,
At your house?
at my house.
Okay.
We used to have a safety deposit box years ago. I was told to cancel it, so we canceled it. Prior to that, we stored them at the school. Until we needed to go find them, we had a crash and the school couldn't find them. I used to
Save
store them.
place.
That was just a library.
I used to store them at the police department. We had, until, went over there one time and saw, you know, a person where I handed it to, and I saw the whole backup go flying across the room. And I said, that's not gonna happen anymore. So far, the safest place seems to be with me.
Yes.
Of the systems that you mentioned that crashed last week, one new one and several older ones, was their data recovered, or was it, here's a new disk, start from scratch?
I was able to recover the data from 3 of them. The 4th one was completely dead. I did have a disk image of this person's hard drive from a month prior to, and I was lucky enough, or that person was lucky enough that they stored their documents on the server, so they didn't lose any documents. One was at the library, it was a brand new computer, a couple months old. I was able to duplicate the hard drive. That was the failing hard drive that was on there. Again, I didn't have to start from scratch. I was lucky with these. You know, if you had to start from scratch, you know, it's an all-day process. You know, from the hardware installed to installing the operating system and all the applications on top of it.
Thank you.
Yes, Tom?
How do we buy things? This is probably a question for you, Derek. Do we have an inventory of all of the printers and computers and everything else that the town has?
We do have an inventory list on there, but Matt's the one that keeps that.
We do have an inventory. Right now we have, as of, I looked at this morning before our meeting, we have right now 1,046 items in our inventory between computers, printers, switches, routers,
And
telephones.
if somebody wants to buy a printer, for whatever reason, do they just go to their immediate supervisor and say, I want to buy a printer, or is there a process within the town that it comes to some reviewing point that says, yeah, we have an extra one over here, or I want you to get this model because it's compatible with what we're using?
There is a policy that's in place by the Board of Selectmen that all technology purchases, hardware and software, are supposed to go through me. Doesn't always. That was put into place about 15 years ago. because departments were buying duplicate things or incompatible things, you know, and just, you know, once they get it, now all of a sudden they can't use it. So, you know, some departments follow it, some departments don't follow it. And, you know, certainly, you know, that's part of my discussion with Derek, you know, in the future, is, you know, in the reorganization of the department, I guess, you know, is, you know, these are some of the things that we need to start doing, is we need to limit these outside purchases. You know, if you're buying 10 computers, you tend to go to me. If you want a printer on your desk, you tend to walk out the street, go to Staples and buy it. And then call me later.
It just seems to me tighter control would be a better use of, a better, so we don't end up with a mixture.
I used to include, you know, when we start the
brands.
budget process, you know, haven't done it in a few years because there's been no money. But I used to send out a letter to departments, you know, prior to the budget process, usually late
What are you gonna
October,
need?
early
Yep.
November, saying, you know, the town should be getting ready for budget. You know, I need to know what your requests are for individual departments, because I'm gonna need a considerable amount of time to research and find what the cost is gonna be and other, and I used to include with that, the policy that says you're not to purchase anything on your own. You know, with the budgets the way that they've been the last 3 or 4 years, there has been no budget for new technology. With either level funded budget or you know, reduction in budgets. I haven't sent out those because we're not buying any. But, you know, I should periodically send that policy out as a reminder to departments, yes.
Anyone else have any other questions? Yes, Dan?
Just going back, if I could, to Mr. Heath's question, just so I understand it, you commented there were 5 people in the school system that are IT individuals, 2 in the police department?
There's one IT tech support full-time person in the police department. The chief is using one of his sergeants as his go-to person, and that IT person reports to the sergeant. But that sergeant's main duties are patrol.
Are there other departments in the town, to your knowledge, that have IT people?
None.
And do others act as IT people trying to fix things, or does
None.
it? Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Heath.
Save the best for last. We're spending $54,000 in Vadar.
56 now.
56 now. Is it worth it? Are we getting our money's worth? Are their services adequate? I mean, or is it just their maintenance fee that they send us a bill every year and then ignore us?
Out of all the, since we stopped writing programs ourselves, this is by far the highest annual maintenance that we've ever paid a financial application vendor. You know, we've had 2 other vendors. One was HT out of Orlando. Another one was SMI out of Philadelphia. And we've never paid, you know, $56,000, $57,000 a year for maintenance. It was more around the $15,000, $20,000 range. Now, are we getting our money's worth? That's more up to the end user, the departments, to decide whether or not the application is working for their office. Is the application working for the treasurer? Is it working for the assessor or the accounting department? My responsibility is it working?
That's probably my question. Are you getting the technical support you need from them?
Technical support, they're really technical support? No, there is no technical support. It's,
So it's like a license
more,
rather than maintenance,
Our
right?
application, is it working or not working?
It's more like a license than a
Yes.
maintenance fee. Maintenance fee is.
Well, maintenance, you know, maintenance would be any upgrades to their applications. That's considered maintenance. You're paying a maintenance for those changes, those programming changes. You know, as they go from version A to version B, that's a maintenance fee as opposed to a license fee where you're licensed to it and that's it.
How many upgrades have we had in the last 3 years?
None.
So we paid $150,000 for upgrades that were non-existent. And I thought they were supposed to come out with a new version this year.
I heard that they are working on a new version. I haven't seen it.
I was talking about, it was July of 2013 they were supposed to do.
They did mention there was a
I'm sorry,
meeting.
2012. 2012 it's.
We did bring them down to meet with the finance committee 2 years ago.
Yes.
Year and a half, 2 years ago. They did say that they had a version that they were ready to release. We have not seen it yet. Last my knowledge, it was still in beta testing.
Yes.
Follow up on, again, Mr. Has anybody sat down with him and said, you know, hey, this isn't fair and it's not reasonable, you know, to have these type of annual charges?
The town accountants have in the past, and the response usually is, that's our fee. You don't pay it, you know, you have a problem, you know, with the applications, you're on your own.
Seems that we're on our own.
So,
I was gonna say, what's new?
you know, that is something that, you know, as Derek, you know, gets through the budget process in town meeting, I did tell him that, you know, I'd like to sit down with the licensing departments and sit down with some vendors and choose one licensing vendor. You know, that's also something that, you know, unfortunately with a revolving door in the town accountant's office, town accountant usually is the one that determines what financial applications that we run. You know, when we have a permanent town accountant, you know, maybe that's something that we look into again, is do we look into different financial applications? And it also would come back to cost. You know, we certainly could use something new. I've stated from day one, prior to day one, before we even purchased the applications, that a financial application going from a mainframe to one that's written in Microsoft Access, which has file limitations, size limitations, and the size of the town of Wareham, we're going to be constantly hitting the ceiling on it, which we do. That it wasn't the right fit for us. We bought it anyways.
Where were they at? Yeah, okay.
I have some equipment questions, if I may. We have 13 servers. How many of those are in the schools?
Those are all in town. Those are
They're
town
all in
servers.
town, and
How
what
many
about the 20
schools?
virtuals? Are they also?
We
all in
have
town?
20 virtual servers right now.
That's in town. The 280 computers, does that include the school computers, or is that?
Those are just municipal,
just
computers. Those are
the
just
town?
town computers. We've got 48 at the library alone. The main library. We've got 8 at the spinning library. We got about 70 computers here, 70 different users.
Are all 280 functional?
Those are all 280.
Don't be smart aleck about it. I mean,
No,
you know,
those are
this is the spares in the
functional
closet.
ones. Those aren't ones sitting in a closet. We don't have 30 of them sitting in a closet somewhere. Those are all functional computers that are assigned to a specific person or a specific job.
Do you know how many computers the school has?
I do not. There's probably somewhere upwards around 1,000.
All right, and the ASA is used by the town? The ASA 400, we
The
use.
400, that we still use for archives. That was our old financial applications. And the accounting department in the treasurer's office does tend to periodically go back and look at history.
Does the school have its own servers?
The school does have its own servers.
How many does it have?
I do not know.
Or not? You stuck away from that one.
Okay.
Right over, we know.
Any more questions? Yes.
Small line item, 7 emergency call boxes.
Those are the emergency call boxes around the beaches, where we've got one on EMS building, one on the police substation. Those are the emergency boxes where you go over, you hit the button, and it automatically calls. We've got them programmed to call 911.
Didn't know those still existed, okay?
We still have them. That's something that, I tried removing a couple of years ago, as everybody's got a cell phone.
Yes.
Yes.
Am I going to walk from Swift's Beach or Swift's Neck all the way up to the playground? Because
Yeah.
that's where the closest telephone pole is, to hit the button? Or, on Shell Point? Am I gonna walk from the beach all the way to the other side of the parking lot?
So, any savings involved in eliminating those?
Well, you're talking about a monthly telephone bill. There's a physical telephone line, so for each one, you're talking $25 a month, times 12 months.
Okay, something.
I certainly would keep the one on EMS, as well as, possibly the one on the new police substation, as they're not occupied 24/7. If EMS is on a call and somebody shows up there with an emergency, and nobody's there. Not that anybody shows up to EMS for an emergency, but
My concern is, do people actually know how to use them anymore?
we do, use them once in a they have been used a couple times. Unfortunately, I'd have to say most of them by kids just playing with them, but
Thank you.
On the communications equipment that you listed, how, is any of that the school equipment?
those are all,
Phone systems, the phone lines,
those are all the town.
those are all town?
Those are all
nothing-
town. I do not include any school.
Just making sure, because I don't want to say, come back later and say, no, you should, so we don't even, so their phone system is their own? Or it's
Their
not tied
their
into
phone
it?
systems are their own. They do have an IP office here at the town hall that interfaces with the town hall's phone system.
Okay.
Is the main backhaul for that. The Minot School and the middle school have put in expansion units based off of the town hall's phone system. They can operate on their own, but they do interact. Voicemail is stored here at town hall for those two locations.
Are you consulted on any of these installations, or do they just do them?
Usually after the fact, I find
After,
out
that's
that
okay.
when it doesn't work, and
Yeah.
their IT staff does not deal with telephones or communications, it's strictly
My
hardware,
last question,
software.
I promise, what's their disaster recovery plan?
I've never seen their disaster recovery.
I was afraid you were gonna say that. Okay, thank you.
Mr.
I just thought, obviously you should all be.
And who has their backup at their house?
Mr. Trudell?
Hopefully, I'll be one of the last questions you can depart here. Back to the call boxes that are operational, so there's 7 of them. You do have a way of tracking back to find out how many valid calls have been made on each box, don't you?
Well, they call the police department 911, so the 911 system over there does record every call coming in, and we can track back, what call came in, what the location was, what phone number it was, and obviously through the police dispatch software, they do track as to what the individual call was. Is it a hang-up, or was it somebody actually looking for
So if I put it another way, theoretically, you would be able to backtrack each call box to say, yes, it has had activity, valid, or it has not.
Correct. You should be able to, yes.
So you would be able to justify whether you retain them or not. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, barring any more questions? Thank you.